Hey guys! Part 22 of What If Naruto Unlocked His True Potential. Hit like and subscribe if you like this one, and also please check the author in the description. Let's start.
We are pain, that's all. We are God.
Chapter 86. The Kamizura Threat. In a windowless room, lit through ceiling tags and candlelight, with multiple lab tables and a desk that was covered with copious amounts of papers, Kabuto stood by the door, making a series of hand signs. Summoning Jutsu, Edo Tensei! A coffin arose from the ground, opened, and disappeared as quickly as it appeared. Kabuto's deceased master Orochimaru appeared in its place, standing completely still. Welcome back to the land of the living, Orochimaru-sama, Kabuto said, smiling. Orochimaru managed to turn around to face his former subordinate. A grin developed on his face as he shook his head. What's this? You summoned me from the dead with my own autonomy? You are being rather gracious to allow me to walk freely, Kabuto-sama. Orochimaru taunted as he walked towards the silver-haired man. Kabuto's grin quickly faded and was replaced with a frown. We've discussed this. Please do not call me Kabuto-sama. Why not? It is the manner of our relationship nowadays. After all, you still haven't attempted to resurrect me, even though you know how to do so. Orochimaru noted. He closed his eyes, holding out his open palm, and tried to channel chakra. His attempt failed, causing him to open his eyes and frown. And even when you summon me with the Edo Tensei, you do not allow me to have access to any chakra. It's a safety precaution with you, Orochimaru-sama. I have to assume you know ways around this technique to break its hold, Kabuto admitted, adjusting his glasses. This is the extent of our relationship nowadays. Rather disappointing, from a man who pledged full loyalty to me, that you still haven't attempted to bring me back permanently, Orochimaru said, scowling. How long has it been now since I've died? The last time you revived me was when you wanted to know the location of Ryuchi Cave. It's been nearly 3 years since then. I suppose close to 4 years since you've died, Kabuto noted. Orochimaru's scowl deepened in response. The man said nothing as he walked around the room towards one of the lab tables. A body was displayed on the table. Orochimaru quickly went over to it to analyze. I notice your clothes in the room we are in. We are in IWA, he noted. This corpse is rather blemish-free. This one was taken very well care of. Well, it is the corpse of a Kurigane shinobi. One Kurigane Ichiro, a famous shinobi who died in the Third Shinobi World War. Their Kekkei Genkai apparently helps with body preservation. Usually, Kurigane's iron release helps make their body more durable, even when they take fatal wounds. It's not healing per se, but it doesn't scar much and easy to preserve. Perfect for me, Kabuto noted, chuckling. I cannot wait to incorporate the DNA into my own. And what would you gain from that? Orochimaru's eyes narrowed on his former subordinate. Oh, I haven't shown you, have I? Kabuto's eyes widened for a moment as he immediately reached into his shoulder. He then immediately pulled out a long bone from his shoulder, causing Orochimaru's eyes to widen. I accomplished what we had been researching for years. The Shikatsumiyaku, amongst other Kekkei Genkai, is mine. What? The Sannin was at a loss for his words, his eyes glued to the bone in Kabuto's hands. How? The secret was actually directly in front of us. The Kekkei Genkai of Sakan and Yukon had rather unique properties to it that, when combined with some of your research and some of my additional research, proved to be the key to successfully integrating Kekkei Genkai into my own blood, Kabuto said, chuckling as he tossed the bone into the sky. He then held out his hand as a large, red crystal formed in his palm. The Shikatsumiyaku of the Kagaya clan, the crystal release Gyurin possessed, the scorch release. Even the Kurigane clan's iron release, hidden in the cadaver in front of you, all of it is possible to obtain. A grin developed on his lips as he closed his palm, smashing the crystal instantly. All possibilities in the world are open to me. Orochimaru was silent for nearly a minute. His eyes moved back from Kabuto to the Kurigane corpse, then back to Kabuto. An even deeper scowl developed on his face as he shook his head. What is the point of this summoning, Kabuto? Was this to taunt me? Orochimaru snarled. To show me that you surpassed me? To show that you have made progress in 3 years in something that I had been attempting to do for over 30 years? I am not here to taunt, Orochimaru-sama. I summoned you to talk. Kabuto admitted, sighing. I have some alone time, so I wish to discuss with you about the Akatsuki and Pain? Pain? Orochimaru's eyes narrowed on the man. What about him? I've joined Akatsuki and met him. Kabuto answered. Orochimaru rolled his eyes. The response was so jarring to Kabuto that he stopped mid-sentence. It took him a second to recover his train of thought. I am currently taking his ideals into consideration. Orochimaru said nothing. Kabuto waited nearly a minute for the Sannin to say anything in response before sighing and continuing to speak. I initially took advantage of my connection to Sasori so I can understand the organization better and know what it is planning. Its existence seemed like it could be a wild factor in the coming years, and I wanted to be certain about what it was planning and if it would be a concern to me that I would need to dismantle. However, I recently became more familiar with Pain's ideals. And personally, they interest me. The man admitted. A world united in peace, in fear of God striking them down. No war. It would give me all the time in the world to focus on my own studies. What specifically are you asking me? Orochimaru snorted. For my blessing to go along with his ideals? Immediately, a grin returned to Orochimaru's face as he walked back towards Kabuto. Is my precious right hand going through another identity crisis once again? You can't leave to follow a new master without getting the old one's permission? Do I still have this much sway over you, even in death? No. Kabuto scowled in response, snapping his fingers. Immediately, Orochimaru stopped moving closer to him. The Sannin was unable to move once again. That is not the case. What is then? Orochimaru asked. He continued to try and move, but he was unable to. Kabuto had stolen all his autonomy. The scowl returned to his face. What did you wish to speak with me about? I wish to discuss Tobi and Zetsu with you, Kabuto said. Zetsu? Orochimaru shook his head. I cannot recall the amount of times I tried to get a DNA sample from that thing. I do not have much to say about it. It's an enigma that I have always been curious about but have yet to understood. Tobi, on the other hand, is someone I understand a bit more, but equally as interesting. A chuckle escaped his lips. A rather mischievous brat. He clearly is hiding his true persona, but he manages to pull off his facade so well that you tend to forget at times. It's almost comical. Do you know anything about him? Kabuto pressed. I do. Orochimaru grinned in response. I managed to obtain a sample of his DNA and analyzed it. Not enough to get a specific identity, but enough to pinpoint a general background. His grin seemed to widen. Uchiha DNA is so fascinating. The Akatsuki member's eyes widened. So you know he is an Uchiha? I do not know what specific Uchiha he is, since he's masked his identity well enough and none of the Uchiha I could assess him to matched identity-wise. Still, DNA does not lie. It shares plenty of similarities I've seen in Uchiha shinobi DNA. Orochimaru noted. I suspect he's an Uchiha, formerly loyal to Konoha, that went missing sometime during either the Second or Third Shinobi World War. I assume one of the reasons for his childish facade is to mask his age. I have no clue which period he went missing in to assume one over the other. If it were not for the one sample I had, I doubt I would be able to piece him to any village in particular or as an Uchiha. Do you believe he knew that you knew? Kabuto asked. I could not say. Akatsuki had hunted me down in the past, but I do know I earned their ire simply leaving the organization and keeping one of their precious rings. Orochimaru stated. His eyes then moved down to Kabuto's right hand, noting the ring he was wearing. The very ring you are wearing right now. This Tobi is an Uchiha. Kabuto rubbed his chin, closing his eyes in thought, seemingly ignoring his former master. Fascinating. I'll try and study this. Look into any Uchiha that went either missing or died out of the village in the Second and Third Shinobi World War. If I can figure out who he is, I can maybe gather more of an understanding of his motives and hopefully gain more insight into his relationship with Pain. And then I can respond accordingly to Akatsuki, whether to help or dismantle. A grin developed on his lips. My, another project to work on! The journey from Shimagakure back to Konoha was making good progress. The Konoha shinobi, along with Fu, were already approaching the Kuni border on their first day of travel. Hinata and Fu led the group with Jiraiya close behind. Naruto and his genin squad were directly behind him while Sasuke brought up the rear, keeping an eye on Yamafu. At the same time, The group had mostly been quiet throughout the day, other than a brief discussion about the name. Fu. Around lunchtime, however, the genin decided to break the silence. Naruto-sensei, can we talk to you about something? Katsumi questioned. Naruto turned his attention to his genin students, who he noticed were all looking at him almost hesitantly. He shrugged his shoulders before smiling at them. What's up? Well, you know we are aware of what's going to go on in Kumo during the Chunin exams, right? Katsumi asked, biting her lips slightly. Ah. Naruto sighed in response. Yeah, considering all the stuff that came with Root, there's no way they could have kept it a secret. Yeah, that's all a thing. Did you know about the planned invasion? Hanabi asked. No. Not until we got to Shimo. I wasn't informed of anything until the first meeting with the Kumo shinobi. Naruto admitted, frowning. So, what does that mean for us? Katsumi asked. Are you not going to recommend us? Well, they want me to recommend you all. So that way my presence in Kumo isn't seen as weird to Akatsuki if they see me in the village, Naruto said. I could probably get away with not recommending you all though and just work as a bodyguard for Ero-sennin though if I ask. So you're not going to recommend us then? Kanji noted. I don't know. I need to think about it. The Uzumaki's frown deepened. I mean, I was planning on it before. But what? Kanji continued. We're ready, aren't we? You're ready for the Chunin exams. Not an invasion with S-ranked shinobi involved, he said sharply. Didn't your Chunin exams end with an invasion, though? Hanabi asked, frowning. Your team was fine. The Uzumaki shook his head, crossing his arms. That's entirely different. We had no idea that thing was going to happen. This is something I know is going to happen and is something I can avoid having you all in. I'm not against you three taking the exams, I'm just trying to think if you all would be okay during the invasion. We'll be fine. Katsumi reassured, grinning at her Jonin-sensei. I promise you that. You're going regardless, aren't you? Especially for that training session for yourself. Kanji added. We can't just leave you behind. You have to let us come with you. That's a whole other thing, you know? Naruto sighed. 'Cause while I can probably do something with my shadow clones, if I bring you all to Kumo and you all make the third round, I'm going to have to be focused mostly on my own training. You said it yourself? Shadow clone training would be fine. We'll be fine and make do, Hanabi replied. Just give us the chance, Naruto-sensei, Katsumi insisted. We'll talk more about this when we get back to Konoha. After this stuff with Danzo is taken care of, Naruto said, shaking his head. I'll need you all to show me that you'll be safe in this invasion. You'll need to prove to me that you'll be fine. The genin of Team 9 nodded their heads in agreement, seemingly okay with that answer. With those words, conversation stopped again and the group as a whole remained quiet. After another failed meeting about Han's love life, Taya and Han's students split in different directions, Roto and Risho going to do some more preparations for the rally, Taya going to the Kurigane clan compound early to practice, and Kuratsuchi going to meet up with Shikamaru for a moment. The IWA Jonin was quick to inform him about the meeting and its subject, much to his amusement. Wait, you all are seriously trying to find Han a girlfriend? Shikamaru asked, grinning. Yeah, we are. Kuratsuchi noted, chuckling. Roto, Risho, and I have kinda thought about it for a little bit a while ago, but then Taya is the one who's been pushing it forward a bit more than we used to. I am surprised Taya would care about his relationship status so much. Shikamaru chuckled, shaking his head. Naruto's going to die laughing when I tell him all of this. You better save it till I'm there. I want to break it to him too, Kuratsuchi stated, grinning. The two continued to laugh for a moment as they walked through Iwadakure. They walked up a set of stairs alongside the tallest mountain in the village, the one where the Tsuchiki's office was placed. So, you have that rally tonight you have to crash. You're going to be training until then, right? Shikamaru asked. Yup. I've been training with Gramps every day this past year. Usually it's at the end of the day, but since I got that thing tonight, I have to make it up with him earlier, Kuratsuchi said, shrugging her shoulders. He's a tough instructor, yeah? He questioned. Oh, fuck yeah, she said, sighing. He's ruthless. But that's good. He doesn't let me slack off. Sounds horrible, Shikamaru said with a chuckle, faking a shiver. To you, lazy ass! Kuratsuchi tapped his shoulder, frowning. Hey, I'm not nearly as lazy. I take my training seriously. Shikamaru said, shrugging his shoulders. I'd actually be really curious to watch you both train. He'll let you watch in, Kuratsuchi said. The two shinobi finished their climb as they finally reached the door to the Tsuchiki's building. As they were about to enter, Katsuchi walked out of the building, nearly bumping into them. My apologies, Dash. Katsuchi stopped himself from continuing as he noticed the pair in front of him. Ah. Kuratsuchi. Good morning. His eyes then moved to Shikamaru and narrowed in on the man, which caused him to stiffen slightly. Morning, Dad! Kuratsuchi greeted, waving her hand. Realization dawned on her as she immediately gestured towards Shikamaru, seemingly unaware of their stare down. I just realized you two haven't met yet, huh? Dad, this is Nara Shikamaru, my boyfriend. I know I've mentioned him to you a lot of times. She then turned to Shikamaru, grinning. And this is my dad, Katsuchi. Good morning, Katsuchi greeted. Morning. Shikamaru nodded his head, doing his best to remain calm. God, what the hell? This is literally my second time meeting him. Why is he so intimidating? You're on your way for training with your grandfather, I assume? Katsuchi questioned, turning his attention back to his daughter. Yup. She nodded her head, grinning. Don't know if we're going to spar today, though. We're gonna pick off on some other shit. Understood. Her father nodded his head before turning back to Shikamaru. And you? Shikamaru nearly choked at being addressed. I'm just going to observe their training. There's much more fruitful things you could be doing with your time. Katsuchi noted, his eyes narrowing. You could be training, for example, instead of simply watching others train. Shikamaru shook his head, frowning. I don't intend on slacking off on my own training down here. Well, if you have the spare time right now, why don't you leave Kuratsuchi alone to train with her grandfather in peace and go train yourself then? Katsuchi stated, crossing his arms. If you must be someone with, you can be with me. Excuse me? The Nara nearly choked. Actually, that's not a bad idea. Kuratsuchi realized, rubbing the back of her head sheepishly. Truth be told, Shikamaru, my training with Gramps recently has gotten a bit destructive. So maybe it's better. Her grin seemed to grow. Plus, you can get the chance to get to know my dad. That's the last thing I want right now. Shikamaru took in a deep breath, shoving his thoughts deep into his mind, as he turned to Katsuchi and nodded his head. I'd be honored to train with you. Then let's go. Let's not waste time, Katsuchi said, walking past the two and going back down the stairs. Kuratsuchi and Shikamaru stood still, in front of the doors to the Tsuchiki's office building, before they turned back to face each other. So, I guess this is happening, Shikamaru said. Hey, you'll be fine. Dad's gonna have fun with you, Kuratsuchi said. He's kinda dull to be honest, and a real big stick in the mud, but he's nice. He'll be Dash. Don't waste time, Shikamaru-san. Katsuchi hollered back, his voice booming from further down the stairs. Welp. Shikamaru sighed as he started to turn the stairs. Guess that's my cue. I'll meet up with you later tonight then. Depending on how long training goes, I'll see you either before or after that rally, Kuratsuchi said, waving her hand at him. Love you. Have fun with Dad. Love you too, Shikamaru replied, smiling as he started down the stairs. The Nara moved down the stairs, trying to catch up to Katsuchi. I'm going to be alone with Katsuchi. Why did I agree with this? He questioned, taking in a deep breath as he tried to push his last, paranoid thoughts out of his mind. God, I hope this isn't some elaborate excuse to get me alone to kill me. Sasuke? Mind if we switch places? I'll keep an eye on Yamafu. The Uchiha turned his attention to Fu, the Nanabai Jinchuriki. He stared at her for a brief second, his eyebrow rose. Any particular reason why? He questioned. Change of pace. Plus, I wanted to speak with him. Fu admitted with a chuckle. Fine. Sasuke sighed as he picked up his pace, walking up to the front of the group next to Hinata. Let me know when you're done with your conversation. Fu was now at the back of the pack with Yamafu. A grin developed on her face as she stared at the silent, orange-haired Yamanaka. How's it going, Yamafu? She asked. His eye twitched in response. You do realize that you all could have simply called me Fu? With only one U. That would be much easier to distinguish us. I suppose. But honestly, I like Yamafu. The Jinchuriki admitted, chuckling. We're keeping it. It's stupid. He sighed. Fu giggled in response. For such an emotionless person, that's such a petty complaint. Well, whether it's stupid or not, I guess that's just what you're going to be called when you and I are together. And until further notice, I'm in Konoha, so suck it up, she said, grinning. So, can you tell me about yourself? I have nothing to say, Yamafu replied. That trick doesn't work. You don't have that seal thing on your tongue. Fu reminded him, frowning. Plus, I'm not even asking about Root. I'm asking about you. Then let me rephrase for you. I do not want to talk, he said sharply. Why not? The Takigekyo shinobi asked. 'Cause honestly, you don't strike me like the silent talk. I have nothing to say, he repeated. Whatever, she sighed. Well, why don't you ask me something then? Like what? The Yamanaka asked. Anything. Ask me anything, Fu said, smiling. The Root agent was silent as he stared at the kunoichi. She remained still, waiting for a response. After a minute of silence, she sighed and opened her mouth to ask him again. He, however, cut her off with his question. Why are you close with my brother? He asked. Huh! She blinked in response. I've heard that you two became close. And I've observed some conversation between you two. I just wanted to ask why. Yamafu clarified, crossing his arms. You aren't from the same village. There's always a chance in the future Taki and Konoha could become enemies. Why bother? The hell is that supposed to mean? She scowled. Our villages could never be enemies. Not after all the help Konoha gave to Taki during Kakuzu's attack on our village. You can never safely assume that. That's a very naive thought to have, the Yamanaka stated sharply. Well, I disagree, she replied, crossing her arms. But to answer your question, I'm close to Kanji because we just clicked. He's a very nice guy, very witty and smart. He's easy to talk to and is just super sweet. A sad smile then developed on her lips. I know from his side, though, he also felt a connection to me because I had your name. Oh, Yamafu noted. Silence filled the air between the two for another minute. The Takigekyo shinobi's eyes narrowed on Yamafu. You do realize that Root deprived you both of getting to know one another, right? She asked. I am aware. He nodded his head. And you still have loyalty towards the organization? Fu asked. Everything Root does is for the greater good of Konoha, the Yamanaka replied. Even if it means throwing away everything important to you, a shinobi must be willing to sacrifice for Konoha. Shinobi already do that. That's part of the job description, the Jinchuriki said, frowning. And they do that without throwing away their humanity and leaving everything else in their life behind. You can still be a loyal shinobi that would sacrifice anything for Konoha and not completely leave behind your friends and family. You need to with the specific workings of Root. You need to in order to be able to do the tasks we do, he replied. We work in the shadows, I've heard. Jiraiya explained. Fu interrupted, which caused Yamafu to scowl in response. Look, I'm just throwing this out there. If you have to go behind the back of the Hokage, the leader of your village, your actions are probably not in the village's best interests. It is when said leader does not act in the village's best interests, he countered. And you think you know better than the Hokage? Fu pressed. That this Danzo person knows better? 'Cause if he did, then why was he never appointed Hokage? Danzo-sama knows the importance of being the unseen foundation. Give me a break. The Jinchuriki interrupted, rolling his eyes. That's just an excuse for someone who wants power but never obtained it. Believe what you want, Yamafu replied. I will, Fu replied. But you should at least think about that, you know? Your organization does horrible things and has done horrible things to your relationship with your family. You should try and think more objectively about the situation. The Yamanaka did not reply, nor did Fu wait for a reply. She went back to the front of the pack, switching places with Sasuke again, who silently walked side by side with Yamafu. The man was silent as he contemplated her words. Danzo-sama is willing to do what needs to be done for Konoha. He will act on the threats the Hokage is too cowardly to act against. That does not make the organization horrible, he mentally noted, frowning. But she is right, it has done horrible things to me. To Kanji. To our parents. Such thoughts would be considered poisonous or treasonous in the past, thoughts that he would have done his best to squash into the recess of his mind. Right now, however, he did not have that ability. He had, for the most part, the freedom to think freely against Root, and that freedom was starting to really annoy him. I really wish the Reikage had simply killed me. He sighed. Dust style! In the crystal-filled cave training ground, underneath the Tsuchikage's office building, Kuratsuchi held out her hands, spacing them apart slightly. A three-dimensional cube of chakra appeared between her hands. Sweat started to develop on her forehead as she concentrated all of her energy on the cube. You can see it, yes? You formed it. Anoki noted, nodding his head. Now move it. Kuratsuchi nodded her head as she started to move her hand forward. The cube rushed out of her hand and expanded, completely surrounding one of the crystal formations in the cave. She immediately began to grit her teeth. Now. Release. Anoki ordered. Dust style, particle dismantling jutsu. The inside of the cube exploded on itself, completely filling it with dust. Within a second, the cube faded away and the dust scattered. The crystal was no longer present. I did it! I dash! Kuratsuchi's cheering stopped as she immediately felt her legs starting to wobble. She fell to one knee. Ugh! Heh! I remember when you were like 5 or something, you asked me why I don't simply spam dust-release ninjutsu to win all wars and get rid of all of Iwa's threats. That is why, Anoki said. This style of ninjutsu, not even taking into consideration that it takes a bit more time to prepare than most standard jutsu, requires extensive chakra, a heavy strain on your body, and a great deal amount of concentration. It would be impossible, I think, for even the Rakuto Sannin to non-stop use dust-release ninjutsu. A grin then developed on his face as he pointed to the dust that had dissipated into the air, noting the lack of the crystal. But as you can see, there are good reasons to still use it. I can see, Kuratsuchi noted as she pulled herself off the ground. She was breathing heavily and still sweating, but a grin of her own was on her face. Finally! After years of trying, finally! I managed to use it! You've done well, Kuratsuchi. Anoki nodded his head, his grin relaxing into a more sincere smile. I'm proud of you. Thanks, she said. The IWA Jonin started to walk towards her grandfather, but immediately fell back to the ground. She winced in pain as she started to pull herself off the ground. I want to continue our training, Kuratsuchi, but we'll take a break for 5 minutes for you to recover, Anoki said, crossing his arms. I don't care how strong you think you are. This style of jutsu is something you cannot do over and over again without breaks. You need to rest. Understood. She sighed, lying down slightly in a comical fashion on the ground's cave. I don't understand how you're able to use it so easily, though. You think I use it easily? The Tsuchikage laughed in response. I blame this fucking Kekkei Toda for my bad back. I've gotten to a point where I can use it multiple times in a battle, but it still overexerts me after a while. Even Mu-sensei could not continuously use it. Still. Ugh. I need to get used to it more. Kuratsuchi grumbled. You will. You just need more practice. Which we can make sure you get, her grandfather said, crossing his arms. But you need to not strain yourself. I know you're stressed about the current state of things, but it's as I said a few nights ago, you cannot strain yourself. Or push yourself too far. Know your limits. He chuckled to himself as he patted his own chest. A Tsuchikage needs to be strong, like a mountain. If you're wobbling from overexertion, how strong are you actually? What kind of mountain is that? Kuratsuchi nodded her head in understanding as she closed her eyes to rest for a minute. Her eyes then opened as quickly as they closed as she stared at her grandfather in surprise. Did you just admit that I could beat Tsuchikage? She questioned. Bah! Anoki scoffed, crossing his arms. That's just some advice to you about how to carry yourself. If that's how you want to take that, then so be it. Ryotenbin no Inoki was someone who never acknowledged that anyone could become Tsuchikage. He was too prideful. While Kuratsuchi and any others knew that was just his verbal reaction and that he most likely had a group of people he thought could be great Tsuchikage, he would never, under any circumstances, admit it out loud. That was the closest Kuratsuchi was ever going to get from an acknowledgement from her stubborn, bullish grandfather that he believed in her, that she could be a Tsuchikage. Understood, she said, grinning as she closed her eyes again. Well, let's rest for a little longer. I'll be up and ready for more training in a moment. Kitsuchi had wordlessly led Shikamaru to a training ground at the base of the mountain. The training ground was bare, no rock formations, no target dummies, no trees or anything. Upon arriving, Kitsuchi turned around to face the Nara, crossing his arms. Kuratsuchi has mentioned that you are a tactician. He noted. You like to control spacing and trap opponents with various jutsu, such as your shadows and the swamp of the underworld technique, while you then attack from a distance with other shadow-related jutsu, fire-style jutsu, and explosions. That's a pretty apt description, yes? Shikamaru nodded his head. I have something that might suit your arsenal, if you would be interested in learning it. However, before we begin anything, I wanted to speak with you, Kuratsuchi said, crossing his arms. What specifically are your intentions with my daughter? Shikamaru's eyes narrowed on the IWA shinobi, trying to appear as confident as possible. I want to be with her. I understand that, but what specifically are you intending to do with her? Are you seeking to marry her one day? Kuratsuchi questioned. The Nara nodded his head. If she would say yes, then yes dash. So, you are willing to leave Konoha for IWA? Kuratsuchi interrupted. Shikamaru's eyes widened at his response. I hope you have not assumed that Kuratsuchi would simply accompany you back home to Konoha if you two married. Kuratsuchi's aspiration is to be the Tsuchikage. She is on track to become it. If she is not the Yondaime, then she will be the Godaime. Not a single person in her generation compares to her in regards to skill, name recognition, and pride in Iwagakure. Kuratsuchi continued, his eyes narrowing. She cannot leave IWA. If you two were to get married, you would have to leave. I don't intend on being someone that comes in between Kuratsuchi's dream. I never expected to have her move to Konoha. Shikamaru said, shaking his head. So, you do intend on leaving your village? Her father questioned. As of right now, no. Konoha needs me, Shikamaru said. Shikamaru did not care for titles or positions. He had no desire to replace his father as Jonin commander of Konoha, and he even cared little for the title of Nara clan head. The one thing he knew, however, is that he wanted to be Naruto's advisor with Konoha. He wanted to sit side by side with Hinata, helping lead Naruto as Hokage into making Konoha the best village it can be, one that fostered peace within itself and around the world. You are at an impasse, it seems, Kuratsuchi noted sternly. No, I'm not. I am certain of the things that I want in life, Shikamaru said, crossing his arms. I am a loyal Konoha shinobi and I want to serve as an advisor to my friend, Uzumaki Naruto, when he becomes Hokage. I also am in love with your daughter and want to spend my life with her, helping her in any way I can as a lover and as an advisor. Do you intend on serving both Konoha and IWA in such a role? The IWA Jonin's eyes narrowed even further. It would be impossible to adequately perform both roles. I know what I want. And I'll accomplish both, Shikamaru said. I do need to talk to Kuratsuchi more. About this. About us. About how we can manage all of this. But I stand by statements. I have a loyalty to Konoha and the people there that are precious to me. But I also love Kuratsuchi and I'll do whatever I can to stay by her side. Kuratsuchi was silent for a moment. He stared long and hard at the boy. Shikamaru felt no killing intent from him, but the man's intense gaze was enough to unnerve him. Still, he held his ground and stared back. You are naive. And too idealistic, Kuratsuchi said sharply. You will one day have to make a choice. Maybe. I do have an idealistic friend that has rubbed off on me a bit, Shikamaru admitted, chuckling slightly. But I stand by my ideals. And I'll fight for them. If anything, you're honest. I appreciate that, Kuratsuchi said, a small smirk developing on his lips. And I can tell you love Kuratsuchi. Both from your words and your demeanor. I love her more than anything else, Shikamaru said sharply. Good. Kuratsuchi nodded his head. He walked forward towards the Nara until he was standing directly face to face with him. I do not intend to speak of your ideals. You and Kuratsuchi can work out what you intend on doing for both her and Konoha. The only thing I ask is that you stay by her side should she ever need you. Especially right now. A frown developed on his face. My daughter is at her lowest right now. I have never seen her this stressed in my life. And I know you helped manage to calm her down. So regardless of anything, I will always be by Kuratsuchi's side. You have my word on that, Kuratsuchi-san, Shikamaru stated. Kuratsuchi's eyes narrowed slightly on the boy, having been interrupted. They lightened up almost instantly, however, as another smirk developed on his lips. He then held out his hand to the Nara. Please, just Kuratsuchi. No need for honorifics with me, Shikamaru, he said. All right. Shikamaru said, smiling, as he shook the man's hand. You have my word, Katsuchi. As the two broke their handshake, Katsuchi walked over side by side to Shikamaru. You said you want to stand by Kuratsuchi's side? Then I have a jutsu that I think would be a good addition to your arsenal for your fighting style. He noted, clapping his hands together. Earth style, mobile core. The ground in the training field in front of them shot upward, creating a raised platform that went 10 feet into the air. Katsuchi then made a gesture with his right hand, causing another patch of ground next to it, sinking into a hole. The IWA Jonin then brought his hands to his side, causing both the elevated and sunken earth to return to their original positions. For a strategist, it is important for you to control the positioning of yourself and your opponent. What better way than the earth itself? Katsuchi noted, rubbing his bead. This jutsu allows you to terraform the battlefield to your advantage, locking opponents in, potentially crushing them, and controlling their placement on that battlefield. Perhaps an opportune jutsu to trap people with your shadows or with other techniques. I see the benefits. Shikamaru noted, nodding his head. Good. Then I hope you'll take this seriously. I don't have all day to work with you on this. Katsuchi noted, smirking. Let's begin, then. I can do the jutsu without hand signs, but you will probably not be able to do that for a while. Let me show you the signs. The IWA Jonin began showing Shikamaru how to perform the jutsu. Uzumaki Taya walked into the Kurigane clan compound, holding onto her flute. She walked through the courtyard to the large assembly hall, circular building that was going to be used for the rally. The hall was rather large, extending downward like an amphitheater. At the bottom was a large marble platform. Standing at the center of the platform downstairs was Suzumabachi, who was pacing back and forth, speaking to herself. Good people of IWA, we are a proud village with the will of stone. We are as strong as the mountains that guard and protect our village. She spoke passionately, bringing her hand to her chest. Our village's humble roots, from a small, civilian village deep in the mountains that was protected by 3 shinobi clans, the Kamizuru clan, the Kurigane clan, and the Kinryu clan, has evolved into a glorious history. Our village has only grown and grown with each passing year. This is why our village's strength matters so much. This is why Suzumabachi's words came to a halt as she noticed Taya starting to walk down the stairs of the theater. A grin developed on her face as she waved at the Uzumaki. Taya, I see you're here early as well. That makes me glad, she said cheerfully. You're practicing, aren't you? I am. I think I'm ready, but it wouldn't hurt to get some more practice in, Taya said, shrugging her shoulders. Where's Jibachi? He still wants to sing with me, right? He'll be here shortly. He and Kurobuchi are getting a few things ready at our clan compound before coming here. Suzumabachi noted. I probably should be back home helping them, honestly. I just can't help it. I had to come by and practice my speech. I heard. It's sounding good. Tayuya complimented, smiling. That was not even a lie. Suzumabachi was a great speaker. She was a passionate speaker with lots of emotion. She was very good at tapping into her own emotions and getting others to experience them. There was no doubt in Tayuya's mind that the IWA shinobi, if given enough time and the opportunity, could convert almost any IWA citizen to feel similarly to her. This fact, however, meant that she was a danger, and needed to be responded against as quickly as possible. Thanks, Suzumabachi said, sighing. I'm hoping this goes well. If I can keep our public opinion high, I believe I'll be able to challenge Inoki to Yama no Osu. So you'll be fighting the leader here? Tayuya questioned. Do you think you'll win? I do. Suzumabachi nodded her head. I've been training nonstop for this. I know Inoki, regardless of his shitty policies in recent years, is formidable. But I know all the secret techniques of the Kamizuru clan, techniques that my brothers were unable to learn because they were too difficult. I am easily the strongest shinobi in my clan since my grandfather, Kamizuru Ishikawa, our Shodai Tsuchikage. Her eyes narrowed. I can win. I have to win. Well, I believe in you, Tayuya said, giving her a thumbs up. Thanks. Suzumabachi smiled back in response. The two grew silent as Tayuya walked off to the sides of the platform, bringing her flute to her lips and start practicing. Her eyes, however, were focused on Suzumabachi, who was still practicing her speech, mouthing it. Hopefully Kuratsuchi can manage to do something about her. When I get back to Konoha and give my report to Jiraiya, we're going to have to respond to her somehow. If Suzumabachi somehow managed to become Tsuchikage, it would be a nightmare for Konoha. Alright, are you ready yet, Jibachi? Kurobuchi questioned. Almost, Jibachi replied, brushing his hair. Kurobuchi rolled his eyes. The two were in the Kamizura clan residential hall. Kurobuchi had finished all necessary preparations for the rally and was waiting impatiently on his brother, who was seemingly still not finished. We promised Suzumabachi we would not wait too long. We need to not wait long, Kurobuchi noted, gritting his teeth. We need to get there early to practice our speeches. I'm almost done, Jibachi said, rolling his eyes. And if you seriously needed to practice your speech, you'd be doing it now while you wait for me. You're just trying to rush me. Damn right I'm trying to rush you, Kurobuchi hissed. Damn brat, why is it always the youngest that's spoiled with no sense of time? And why is the oldest always an impatient complainer? Jibachi retorted. Kurobuchi opened his mouth to reply, but his words died on his tongue as bees started to rush into the room. The bees flew back and forth between him and Jibachi. Both had wide eyes as Jibachi put down the brush in his hand. The bees had given them warning of a group that had just entered the compound. Hostile intruders? Jibachi noted. Who? Why? Who doesn't matter at the moment. We need to respond, Kurobuchi noted as he walked out the door. Follow me. We'll respond appropriately. The man then held out his hand, which caused a few bees to perch on his index finger. Go and inform Suzumabachi. We can handle these foes, but she needs to know what's happening. The bees flew off his finger and out a window, flying towards the Kurigane clan compound. Both Kurobuchi and Jibachi rushed out of the room, both looking around the hall carefully. Both had bees flying by their side and Jibachi was gripping a kunai in his left hand. After 2 minutes of searching, the men left the residential hall. The second they walked out into the Kamizuru clan compound, a shadowy figure descended from the doorway on top of Jibachi. The blonde Kamizuru, noticing on time, held out his kunai and managed to block an attack from the figure's tanto. His eyes narrowed, taking in the appearance of his assailant. While he did not recognize the shinobi in the slightest, he seemed incredibly nondescript. He took in the Awagakure uniform. Who are you? Why are you attacking us? We are loyal IWA shinobi. Down with the Kamizuru. Long live Sandaime-sama, the man replied, kicking Jibachi. The blonde Kamizuru managed to jump away in time, avoiding the kick. Kurobuchi jumped back, landing next to him and creating distance between the two brothers and the assailant. On cue, however, 14 more figures appeared from the shadows of the courtyard and surrounded the two Kamizura shinobi, all brandishing tanto. 15 versus 2. Unfortunate numbers, Jibachi noted, frowning. Hold them off. If we can survive until Suzumabachi gets here, we'll win, Kurobuchi said sharply. Still, hail Sandaime-sama? Anoki would never order a hit on loyal IWA shinobi. Regardless of his thoughts on our movement, he can't do anything to us. That would upset the balance of everything here in IWA. Jibachi noted, frowning. Something must be going on. This can't be an assassination on his behalf. Then the Kamizuru was forced to abandon his thoughts as the assailants charged forward. Ugh, where the hell are they? Suzumabachi grumbled. Her complaint was loud enough that Taya got distracted and messed up her intonation. Her rendition of a local song Blue Bird turned very sharp. The hell? She turned her head to the Kamizuru. You cool? Yes. No. Ugh. Suzumabachi sighed, bringing her hands to her face. Where the hell are Kurobuchi and Jibachi? Those assholes do know the rally is in 2 hours, right? Perhaps they got distracted? Tayuya suggested. Want me to go fetch them? No, that can't be the case. Maybe for Jibachi, but Kurobuchi's the most responsible of us three. He'd be here by now, at least. She responded. And no, they shouldn't need someone to fetch them. Tonight could have major consequences on our perception with IWA. They need to fucking get here already. As if on cue, a bee flew into the room. The bee quickly flew towards Suzumabachi's face, getting directly into her face. Huh? What's up? Suzumabachi's words died on her lips as the bee continued to buzz. Suzumabachi, seemingly, managed to ascertain a meaning. Her eyes widened in horror. What? Huh? Tayuya turned to her in confusion. A concerned look developed on her face. What's up? Did something happen? My brothers, there. The Kamizuru was unable to finish her sentence. She quickly ran up the stairs, leaving Taya behind. As Suzumabachi rushed up the stairs, the door to the amphitheater opened up, revealing Kurigane Kusari. The man was quickly shoved to the side by Suzumabachi as she bolted. Humph. He hissed, his eyes turning to face Suzumabachi. Kamizura's Suzumabachi, where the hell are you going? Ninja art, hornet wings jutsu. Suzumabachi jumped into the air as a pair of golden wings, seemingly formed from honey, developed around her back. She then quickly flew into the sky. Taya hurried out of the building in time to see her flying away. What is she doing? Her rally starts in 2 hours and her brothers aren't here. Now she's leaving. Kusari hissed. Attendees should be arriving within the next hour. She doesn't have time to waste. I don't know. Taya shook her head. What the hell was she told? Up in the sky, Suzumabachi continued to fly, heading directly towards her clan compound. Come on, hurry. Hurry. Suzumabachi shook her head as she flapped her wings. I need to hurry. Jibachi, Kurobuchi. Please. Hold on. I'll be there soon. Just don't die. Please. You don't want us there with you? Shikamaru questioned. After everyone completed their training or various errands, Kuratsuchi, Shikamaru, Risho, Roto, Dosu, and Susumu all met up at Han's home. The 3 Konoha shinobi stood at the door of the house while the IWA shinobi were walking outside. Honesty, taking you all would be a bad idea. You all being there may set off more bad blood, Roto noted. Anti-Konoha sentiments will be at its highest when the rally really begins, Risho said, frowning. While we will argue back when we get the chance, you all being there would be a giant target for Suzumabachi. You all will be safe, right? Susumu questioned. This rally will not get violent? None have. None will, Kuratsuchi said, smiling. Don't worry about us. We'll be safe. Just take care, all right? Shikamaru said. We promise, Kuratsuchi replied. Love you. Love you too, Shikamaru said, waving goodbye. With those words, the IWA shinobi started to walk off, preparing for another rally to disrupt, seemingly expecting it to be just like the last ones. Completely unaware of what else was happening in the village. Ak! Jibachi shouted as he was stabbed with a tanto, the blade piercing the one weak spot in his beeswax armor. The Kamizuru started to choke up blood. His eyes moved towards Kurobuchi, who was down on the ground in his own pool of blood, dead. He then focused on the assailants around them. Both he and Kurobuchi were only able to kill 4 of the 15 assailants. The other 11 were still alive, 10 of them looking down on him, while the 11th was directly in his face, his blade dug deep into his stomach. These men knew. They knew about the weaknesses related to his and Kurobuchi's fighting style. They knew how to coordinate and work together. And yet, they did not fight like any IWA shinobi he had ever met. Who the hell are these people? His mind thought. The 11th assailant pulled out his tanto from Jibachi's body, which caused the blonde to hiss in pain. When the sword was fully out, his body went weak and he fell to the ground, head hitting the courtyard hard and his glasses cracking upon impact. 2 down, the assailant noted as he turned to the other 10. Only 1 more left. Sai-san, your thoughts? We wait for her. She'll have to return at some point. Sai noted as he pocketed a scroll. We need to clean up the area, though. We can't have her being suspicious upon her arrival. Unlike these 2, she is going to need to be ambushed to have the highest chance of success. Understood. One of the other root agents replied as he walked up to Kurobuchi's body. Should we dispose of the bodies? We can take them back with us. Danzo-sama might be able to get something out of their bodies. Sai stated. They do have a bloodline, after all. Some research and study could be beneficial. The root agent nodded his head as he pulled out a sealing scroll. He was about to seal the body inside when he felt a sharp, intense pain. A yellow-colored needle, the size of a senbon, was sticking inside his neck. What the dash? The man was unable to finish his sentence as he fell to the ground, dead. The remaining 10 root agents jumped away, avoiding similar needles. They then turned their attention to the sky. Suzumabachi was flying directly above the Kamizura clan courtyard, her eyes narrowed. A loud buzzing noise was being emitted from all over the clan's compound, as if every bee in the area was buzzing in rage. Who the fuck are all of you? Suzumabachi growled. What did you do to my brothers? All hail Sandaime-sama. One of the root agents said proudly as he and the others made the same hand signs. Fire style, flame killing barrier. All 10 remaining assailants released a massive barrage of fireballs into the air, directly aimed at Suzumabachi. The Kamizura flew through the air, avoiding each and every fireball as she quickly made contact with the ground. She then rushed at one of the agents, her fingertips developing yellow-colored needles sticking out of each finger. Overwhelming 5-needle sting, Suzumabachi slammed her palm into the root agent's back, causing a sharp pain to enter his back. He quickly jumped back and released another barrage of fireballs at her, but using her wings, she flew back into the air, avoiding the attack. You have 5 seconds left, she said. 5, 4 dash. The assailant jumped into the air after her, swinging his tanto at her. She dodged mid-air, his blade barely missing her. She then grabbed onto his arm as she reached for his sword. 2, 1. She finished. The root agent struggled for a second, trying to prevent her from stealing his sword, but on cue with her finishing her countdown, his body started to shut down. The poison that had entered his body from her needles had spread throughout his body. His resistance stopped, and his eyes shut forever. Suzumabachi stole the blade from his hands as his body fell to the ground, dead. Ninja Art Super Beast Scroll! Sai pulled out a scroll and quickly drew on it, creating 3 large eagles made of ink that flew through the sky towards her. The birds attempted to cut at her with their talons from above, but she flew downward, avoiding the attacks. As she flew down, 3 more root agents jumped into the air, attempting to strike at her with their own tanto. She clapped her hands together in response. Ninja Art Honey Bee Jutsu! On cue, bees began to swarm around her. The bees quickly flew at the oncoming root agents en masse, stinging them quickly and secreting a golden honey from their needles with each sting. Within seconds, before the men could even react, their bodies were completely encased in the golden honey, unable to keep moving. Only their heads were still visible. The honey weighed them down, sending them crashing into the ground again before they could even reach Suzumabachi. She then clapped her hands once again, causing 3 bees to fly over to them and sting them a single time in the forehead, piercing their masks and injecting poison, and kill them instantly. 5 down. 5 more to go. Suzumabachi noted, a scowl on her face as swung the tanto she had stolen around in a circular fashion. You think because you all could kill Jibachi and Kurobuchi when you outnumbered and ambushed them that you all would have a chance against me? I am the strongest Kamizura our clan has seen since our grandfather. I discovered all of his secret techniques with my brothers, and I was able to learn every single one. Her scowl deepened as she ran her left hand over the tanto, covering the blade with beeswax. I'll fucking kill all of you! Sai's response was to simply draw on his scroll. Ninja Art Super God Fist! On cue with his drawing, 2 gigantic humanoid figures rushed out of the scroll and charged forward at Suzumabachi, extending their fists. The ink-like figures punched at Suzumabachi, but the IWA Jonin flipped backwards, creating distance. Another root agent charged forward at her while she was still flipping, trying to stab at her with his tanto. Suzumabachi swung her own beeswax-covered blade at his and they both clashed. Upon impact, however, the regular tanto the root agent was using cracked. Suzumabachi swung her own tanto again, which the root agent parried with his blade. The second collision caused the blade to split down the middle, causing it fall apart. The root agent jumped backwards, creating distance. The ink-covered eagle Sai had created proceeded to fly directly above Suzumabachi's body and dissolved into ink that fell from the sky. Ninja Art, Ink Flush! Suzumabachi jumped away just as the ink touched the ground. The ink quickly formed into snake-like figures, however, and extended outward. Just as she was about to fly away, the ink snakes grabbed her leg, pulling her back to the ground. She's immobilized! Get her! One of the root agents stated. 4 of the remaining root agents all made hand signs before releasing a stream of fire out of their mouths directly at Suzumabachi. Sai, meanwhile, made a gesture with his pen, causing the ink humanoid creatures to charge forward at Suzumabachi. Before the creatures could make contact with her, however, a swarm of bees materialized around them and started spinning in circles. The bees rapidly stung at them, creating holes in their bodies and sending mixtures of poison and honey into their bodies, disrupting the ink inside. Within seconds, the giant ink figures fell apart. Did she just summon those? Without the summoning jutsu? Sai's eyes widened. The 4 streams of fire, however, did make contact with Suzumabachi's body. The flames stood still, completely enclosing her. The root agents all stared at the fire, waiting for a confirmation that she was dead. The flames quickly dissipated. Suzumabachi stood still in the remnants of the fire, her arms crossed. Golden beeswax started to fall off her body, but a decent chunk of it seemed to still be on her, as if she had not been struck by the fire in the slightest. The Kamizura beeswax armor. Her brothers knew that same jutsu, but theirs was nowhere near this durable. One of the root agents noted, frowning. Her clan is weak to fire ninjutsu. That beeswax melts easily from B rank or higher fire release ninjutsu. How is it still standing? It's because she wasn't kidding. She has learned her grandfather's techniques. Sai realized. Being able to create beeswax stable enough to withstand multiple fires. Being able to summon bees without the summoning jutsu. She really has learned everything the Shodite Tsuchikage was capable of. The bees that had destroyed the ink giants started to fly in a circular pattern, their stingers constantly facing the root agents. Suzumabachi proceeded to make a singular hand sign. This mission is a failure. She will kill us. But Danzo-sama needs to know about this. Sai quickly noted as he started drawing on his scroll. I need to get out of here to report to him about her. 1000 bee stings jutsu. After making her hand sign, the bees released their stringers, flying at the remaining 5 root agents. Sai quickly created a giant ink bird from his scroll and jumped on its back, flying back away from the compound. The stingers made contact with the remaining 4 root agents, completely piercing their skin and drawing blood with each attack. Their entire bodies were covered with the needles as they all fell to the ground, a combination of blood loss and the poison from the stingers. Sai only barely avoided the attack, his bird flying away. Don't think you're getting away! Suzumabachi hissed as she made a hand gesture, causing the bees to start turning towards Sai's fleeing figure. I'll dash, ack! Suzumabachi's attention was turned away from Sai at the sound of a cough. Both her and her bees focused on Jibachi, who was able to lift his head up slightly. She immediately rushed over to him, the bees that were in the area flying next to her, as she got by his side. Jibachi! You're alive! Thank Dash. Her eyes widened as she noticed his eyes starting to close. No! No! Don't you dare die on me! Hold on! I can get you to medical! Please Dash, Kurobachi's dead. I'm going to die too. Jibachi spoke softly, coughing up blood. Dash, shut the fuck up! You are not dying on me! Suzumabachi grabbed his body, carrying him in her arms, and started to fly into the sky, her bees following her. She started to fly towards the nearest Iwagakure medical unit. You can't die too! I won't allow you to die! Suzumabachi Dash, please. Stop talking. Suzumabachi shook her head, tears developing in her eyes. Please. Our clan's dead. Why you're my only family left, Jibachi. I can't let you die. I can feel death coming, Jibachi said, coughing. I know, attacked. What? Suzumabachi's eyes widened. Those men thought I died. They mentioned the name. Danzo, to each other. The blonde Kamizuru choked out. Danzo? The brunette's eyes narrowed. That name, that's Shimura Danzo, right? One of the Nidaime Hokage's students. That man. She began to grit her teeth as realization fully dawned on her. Those fucking Konoha scum snuck these men in when they entered the village last night. How Dash? Ugh! Jibachi coughed up more blood. No! Suzumabachi's thoughts were stopped as she brought her brother's body closer to her. Please, Jibachi! Hold on! You can make it a little longer! Please! Suzumabachi! Please! Keep our legacy alive! Jibachi's eyes started to close once again. Realize our goals! No. No, 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 no. Tears fell from her eyes as she started to stop moving, flying in one spot as she focused on her brother. Jibachi, please! Don't! Jibachi! Suzumabachi sobbed loudly in the sky above Iwagakure. The bees around buzzed equally as loudly, mourning the loss of the youngest Kamizuru. Second passed into minutes. She was high enough in the sky that not a single person could hear either hers or the bees crying. She remained still, her mind focused on the brother in her arms and her other brother at her clan compound. Instinctively, Her body started to fly back towards the Kamizuru clan compound. As she landed back on the ground, her eyes moved from Jibachi's corpse in her hand to Kurobuchi's, still in his own pool of blood. Her eyes then moved to the bodies of the 14 root agents that had assassinated her brothers. As her eyes narrowed, the bees around buzzed angrily, forming a circular pattern around her body, appearing as if they would have charged at anything that walked into the clan compound. "I will beat Tsukiji. I will beat Tsukiji in both of your honor," she said sharply. "And I swear to both of you, Konoha will burn." With that thought, Suzumabachi went over to Kurobuchi's body. She adjusted Jibachi's body, carrying him over her left shoulder, as she then picked up and carried Kurobuchi's over her right shoulder. She then snapped her finger, causing the bees around her to pick up the bodies of the 14 deceased root agents. The Kurigane clan compound's amphitheater was completely filled. The Kurigane clan had done a great job advertising an IWA Pride rally, getting the entire venue filled with both civilians and shinobi. Not a single seat was empty, at least 1,000 people were in attendance. There was quiet chatter amongst the crowd as they all talked about what the subject of the rally was and what would be discussed. Within the crowd, Kuratsuchi, Risho, and Roto were hidden, all focused on the stage, waiting intently for the rally to start. On the stage, only Kasari and Tayuya were present. Kasari was fuming, his eyes focused on the door to the amphitheater. "Where are they?" he hissed. "I went through all the trouble organizing this for them. Where the fuck are they? What happened?" Tayuya shook her head. "I'm feeling really anxious about all of this shit. Suzumabachi should have been back long ago. Something bad must have happened." 5 more minutes passed with the audience's chatter started to turn louder and more irritated. "Where are the Kamizuru? Why hasn't this started yet? Was this just some kind of prank? We were promised an entertaining show of IWA Pride. What's taking them so long? Should we go? I don't wait around for nothing to happen." Another minute passed by. The door to the amphitheater was kicked up, banging hard against the wall, the action silencing the crowd. All eyes focused on the door. Suzumabachi, her wings no longer activated, walked down the stairs of the amphitheater, carrying the bodies of her 2 brothers. There was a horrified gasp from the crowd. "Oh my god, is that Kurobuchi and Jibachi? Are they? They can't be. This is supposed to be a show, right? Is this part of a skit? There's blood on her shoulders. This isn't an act? Are they actually?" The muttering started to grow louder and louder as a panic began to develop in the audience. "Are those 2 dead? For real?" Roto questioned, his eyes wide. "What happened?" Risho questioned. Kuratsuchi bit her lip, shaking her head. I don't know. This can't actually be happening. Who the hell would have killed them?" Suzumabachi continued her walk down the stairs until she reached the stage. Kasari's irritated expression was replaced with one of confusion. He opened his mouth to say something, but no words came out. Suzumabachi placed the corpses in the center of the stage gently. Tears, once again, developed in her eyes as she stared at their lifeless bodies. "Good people of IWA, this was supposed to be a rally of Iwagakure pride. A time of music and dance and speech. Of our village's proud history. A chance to talk and discuss our village's future. It was supposed to be a joyous time tonight. It no longer is," she said, no emotion in her voice as she finally looked away from her brothers. "During preparations, I noticed that Jibachi and Kurobuchi had not arrived yet. And I was getting anxious and angry about it. Then, I received a warning from one of Jibachi's bees. My brothers. She shook her head, the tears in her eyes drying up completely. "They were attacked." The room grew quiet at her words. Suzumabachi snapped her fingers, causing her bees to come flying in the room. The collective group of bees were dragging the bodies of the root assailants with them. "These are their attackers. Don't let their clothes deceive you. They are no IWA shinobi. And why would they be? Loyal Iwagakure shinobi do not attack and kill other loyal Iwagakure shinobi, regardless of political differences. I suppose these could have been up-and-coming missing ninja, but they aren't. I know who they are. Because Jibachi learned who they were, just before his death." Her eyes narrowed in anger as pure killing intent. "These men were following the orders of one Shimura Danzo, an elder of Konohagakure." Immediately, the crowd gasped at the declaration. "Who's Danzo? Whoever he is, he ordered their deaths. Why? What did they do? He's from Konoha? I recognize his name. I've heard it in history books. This man. Konoha ordered this. Konoha tried to kill the Shodai's grandchildren? Yes. Suzumabachi spoke up at the last audience comment, gritting her teeth as she clenched her fists. Konoha ordered the death of myself and my brothers. The crowd erupted in anger. How dare they? Aren't we allies? Weren't we supposed to be allies? Were they that angry that someone in IWA was against them? Jibachi and Kurobuchi were harmless. This was completely unprovoked. Konoha wouldn't order this. Roto shook his head, his stomach dropping. Right. Tayuya-san is here to learn about them. She hasn't given a report. This can't be it, Risho said, frowning. But still. Who is this Danzo person? I recognize the name. Gramps has mentioned him before, Kuratsuchi said, trying to resist the urge to throw up. Konoha would never. The audience continued to scream loudly in anger at the deaths of the two Kamizura grandsons for a moment until the bees started to buzz loudly, silencing the crowd. Suzumabachi cleared her throat, drawing attention back to herself. I have brought my brothers here so you all can feel my sorrow. So we can mourn for the lives of Jibachi and Kurobuchi, who were killed too early. I have brought the corpses of these rotten scum who murdered them so you can feel my anger. So we can all feel the rage against those who attack IWA, she said sharply. And I am now here to make one statement. IWA and Konoha can never get alone. We can never be at peace. Because even when we are peace, Konoha still sees us as a threat. They still attack loyal IWA shinobi they see are too threatening. They cannot and will not be trusted. We cannot keep up this facade of allies. We need to respond appropriately to them, which we can't with Atsuchikage who allowed this joke of an alliance to happen in the first place. The bees rushed to her side, forming a circle around her. They continued to buzz loudly, but Suzumabachi was able to speak above them. I hereby challenge Ryotenba no Inoki to Yama no Osu. She shouted. I implore all of you to give me your support, and get the rest of IWA to support this message. Go and tell the crowds outside what happened to my brothers. Let them know what Konoha done. Let them see why Iwagakure needs change. She clapped her hands together. Let them know why Konoha must pay. Konoha must pay. Konoha must pay. Konoha will pay. Long live Kamizura's Suzumabachi, the Yondaime Tsuchikage. The crowd, as a whole, erupted into applause, with loud chanting in agreement with her. Suzumabachi. Kusari grinned in response at the Kamizuru as he cracked his knuckles. Good. This will get us closer to keeping IWA strong. As it should always have been. Oh God. Kuratsuchi's stomach dropped once again. Her eyes moved to Risho and Roto, who both had similar expressions. None of them made any attempt to argue against her. They all knew nothing was going to work tonight. This really is going to happen. This is going to lead to war against Konoha if Suzumabachi wins. Tayuya realized, scowling. As Konoha's spymaster, she recognized the name Suzumabachi mentioned, which only deepened her scowl. Shimura Danzo, what the fuck did you just do? Deep within the crowds of screaming Iwagakure citizens, one person was watching and not making any emotional reaction. He had only gone out of curiosity after hearing that the surviving Kamizura grandchildren were holding a political rally and was curious to see what they were planning. A grin developed on the man's face as he adjusted his glasses slightly. My. Things here in IWA are very interesting, Kabuto noted, chuckling, his eyes focused on Suzumabachi. They're very interesting indeed. I have some extra spare time. I suppose I can sacrifice some of my research time to learn more about what's going on. Chapter 87, Build-Up and Unrest. As the crowds of people left the Kurigane clan auditorium, Suzumabachi's eyes wandered from person to person. She saw the rage in their eyes, heard the anger in their chants, and felt the lust for revenge in their hearts. It would never bring her brothers back from the dead, but it was enough to give her some solace. Jibachi, Kurobuchi, rest easy. In your name, IWA will rise anew, she told herself, resisting the urge to tear up again. Minutes quickly passed by until the entire area was empty. Suzumabachi's eyes moved from the now empty chairs and stairs to the stage. She noticed that Tayuya was no longer there and left with the crowds of people. A frown developed on her face at that realization, but she noticed that Kusari was still there. The Kurigane looked at her, crossing his arms, a grin on his face. You are definitely a passionate speaker, Suzumabachi. You'll make an excellent Tsuchikage, he told her. We all feel your rage. We all want revenge for your brothers. And we will have it, Suzumabachi said sharply. The Kumo Chunin exams are approaching. When Konoha's Hokage goes to the village to observe, we will send our army to Konoha and decimate it to the ground. That will be my first order as the Yondaime. I more than approve. I want to lead it, Kusari said. She shook her head. If you want, you can be at my side, but I'll be leading it. I want to do it personally. I want to see that wretched village in ashes. The room was quiet for a moment as Suzumabachi walked back up to the corpses of her brothers. She reached down to Jibachi's body and picked it up, carrying it over her left shoulder. She then went over to pick up Kurobuchi's. Suzumabachi, may I make a suggestion for you? Kusari spoke up, causing her to turn to face him. You are going to publicly challenge Inoki tomorrow to Yama no Osu, I presume. I would like to be in the fight as well. You wish for me to challenge him to a duel match? Suzumabachi asked, her eyes narrowing. It was not unheard of for the Tsuchikage to accept a challenge from two shinobi. The first known case was Ishikawa accepting a challenge from two shinobi, Zeno Bansai and Kurigane Yoshimitsu, two aged veterans from the First Shinobi World War that thought Ishikawa was not leading IWA down the correct path. Both shinobi had a similar ideology and had equal positive support from the citizens, so Ishikawa permitted them to both fight him at once on one condition: they allowed him to have a partner. The public agreed to the fair concession, and Ishikawa managed to defeat both men alongside his sister, Masako Kamizuru. It was rare for two shinobi to challenge the Tsuchikage to Yama no Osu, as one challenger would have to be conceding to the other the title of Tsuchikage should they win their fight. As such, there were only 3 cases of such events in history. What do you get out of it, Kusari? Suzumabachi asked. Kusari shook his head in response. It's not what I get out of it, it's what IWA gets out of it. I do not care for the Tsuchikage titleship, that's yours when we win. I care about the optics though. I want to show IWA that our village is united. A great injustice has been done to the Kamizuru clan and the Kurigane clan stands by their side. A chuckle escaped his lips as his hands reached for one of the swords at his sword. It will be received better by the people. It will show a unified IWA, ready to move on to the future together. I see. Suzumabachi nodded her head, her eyes still narrowed slightly. I promise you, I have no intent on taking the title. I will do what I have always done, publicly support you as Tsuchikage. This is all done to keep IWA united further, and crush any dissent against us when we win, Kusari said, grinning. It shows an IWA that acknowledges its history, with the strongest shinobi of 2 of their historic clans fighting together against the useless Tsuchikage. You wish to fight him too, huh? Suzumabachi noted. Of course. Kusari nodded his head, his natural scowl returning quickly. Inoki was useless in the Third Shinobi World War and my clan and yours felt the pain the hardest. Both of our clans lost heavy amounts of numbers and it's about time we show that fool the consequences of failed leadership. Fine. Suzumabachi sighed. She turned her attention back to Kurobuchi's body and picked it up, carrying it over her right shoulder. We will fight him together. Perfect. Kusari said, the grin returning quickly once more. This will be the beginning of a new era. You as citizens, both shinobi and civilians, will eat this up. Public support will be astronomical. We will have our fight shortly. You have got to be shitting me. Inoki growled. When the Kamizura clan's rally ended at the Kurigane clan compound, Kuratsuchi, Risho, and Roto rushed out and gathered the Konoha shinobi, Han, and Katsuchi. They then barged into the Tsuchikage's office and explained everything to everyone all at once. This is unreal, Dosa said, shaking his head. Such an event could not have occurred at a worse time. No doubt that the idea that we let in those ruffians is going to spread. Susuma added, his right hand on his chin in thought. A scowl was on his face. I don't know how we approach this. There's nothing that can be done to approach this, Katsuchi said sharply, crossing his arms. The damage is done. This will spread. Konoha has murdered Kamizuru Jibachi and Kamizuru Kurobuchi. That fact will spread through the village. Bah! Inoki scoffed. The Tsuchikage slammed his hands onto his desk, creating 2 large cracks on it. The entire room focused on the Tsuchikage, who stood up from his chair and walked forward it. He got in front of Shikamaru's face, his eyes glaring into the Nara. "I need to you be completely honest with me. Did you help these shinobi into the village?" he asked quietly. "No," Shikamaru replied, scowling. "Gramps, Shikamaru's right about that. I can guarantee they didn't let them in." Kuratsuchi spoke up, frowning. "Konoha would not allow that. Not under their current Hokage, at least." "Humph." Anoki sighed, bringing his hands to his face. "When this mess is over, I am killing Shimura Danzo, and after I'm finished, I'm killing Hiruzen for doing nothing about him over the years." "So?" Roto started to speak, frowning. "Can someone explain who this Danzo guy is? Why does he have the influence to pull this off?" "He's a student of the Nidaime Hokage and a former colleague of the Sandaime," Taya answered, crossing her arms. "He's been off active duty for years and serves the village as an elder and was an advisor to the Sandaime to some degree. The thing about him is that he has very archaic views on what Konoha should be doing. He believes that Konoha needs to assert itself as more of a dominant presence in the elemental nations. He interferes with politics in other villages to try and meddle and get rid of harmful agents that he thinks he could be a problem for Konoha," Anoki said sharply, his eyes narrowing again. "I've wanted that man dead for years, and that would have been one of my first priorities if IWA ever got into another war with your village. I lightened up on him since our villages became allies and he's been inactive these past couple of years, but clearly that was a fucking mistake. So there's nothing that can be done about this, though?" Risho asked, frowning. "Suzumabachi will have public support, won't she?" "She will." Han nodded. "She announced her challenge at that rally. She'll publicly announce it again tomorrow, I'm assuming. I suspect that her public fight with Sandaime-san will occur in the next 3 days, latest." "But you'll win, right?" Roto asked. "'Cause this is Suzumabachi we're talking about. Like, sure, she's strong and all, but she's not stronger than you, Sandaime-sama. That doesn't matter, enough damage has been done. I'm sure after I beat her, someone else will probably challenge. Kurigane Kusari, most likely. This just creates a bad situation in IWA. It's going to be a moment before things can get back to normal," Anoki said, sighing. He walked over to his window and looked outside, staring at the mountain above the village. "I'll need to focus these next couple of days. Kitsuchi, Kuratsuchi, I would like you all to help me with that." "Understood." Kitsuchi bowed in response. "Huh." Kuratsuchi blinked in response. "What dash, I'll need you to spar with me," Anoki clarified. A scowl developed on his lips. "I'd like to ask Rashi to spar as well, however that asshole is still not back from his mission even though he should have completed it." "I believe Rashi will be back in time," Han said. "I can at least help with that. I can make contact with him and get him back here." "Please do," Anoki requested. "So basically, whenever we can, you want us to spar with you," Kuratsuchi clarified. Anoki nodded his head. "Fine by me. We were already doing that anyway. I appreciate you for letting me know about this right away," the Tsuchikage said, sighing. "I also appreciate you, Risho, and Roto for always doing what you could at her rallies. But at this point, it's over. Damage is done. Leave the rest to me." Kuratsuchi frowned in response, but did not say anything. She simply nodded her head. "Kuratsuchi." Shikamaru frowned, looking down at his girlfriend. Taya shook her head as she reached into her bag and pulled out 2 scrolls and a pen. She opened up the first scroll and quickly began writing things down. "I'm going to give my report to Jiraiya immediately, if you do not mind," she said. "Would you want me to ask him to come to IWA? Would that make the situation better or worse? Him being here could help diffuse things slightly, but only in a few days. If after my fight with Suzumabachi, he could come to the village, acknowledge that Danzo acted rogue against his desires, affirm peace in our village, and then promise to execute Danzo and later give proof that he did it, I'm sure that would lighten things up." Anoki acknowledged. "I can arrange that." Taya nodded her head, still writing down on her scroll. "You think this fight will be happening in about 3 days, right? I'll arrange for him to be here in a week." "Easily. I appreciate that," Anoki said before turning his head. "Anyway, I'm fucking exhausted. And I'm sure you all are. So, let's go get some rest and prepare for a couple of long days." With those words, the shinobi started to slowly leave the Tsuchikage's office. Within seconds, only Inoki and Katsuchi were present in the room. You're concerned. Katsuchi noted, frowning. Are you concerned for your fight with Suzumabachi? More than I'll admit to Kuratsuchi and the others, yes. If she really has learned everything her grandfather was capable of, then this will be a more even fight than I think Kuratsuchi and her teammates realize. Inoki admitted, sighing. It's also been years since the last time anyone's fought me in one of these things. We'll remedy that situation shortly. You will fight well and win, father, Katsuchi said. Kuratsuchi will do our best to keep you strong these next couple of days. And I appreciate that, Inoki said, allowing a small smirk to develop on his face. Hope you're ready to experience hell with me, Katsuchi. I'm going to need to fight at my A-game, so don't expect these next few spars to be easy. They better not be, Katsuchi said, chuckling. With those words, Katsuchi left the room, leaving Inoki completely alone. The sandaime Tsuchika's eyes were focused on the mountains around the village. His eyes then moved from the peaks down to the village underneath. A frown developed on his lips. Wonder what Ishikawa-sama and Mu-sensei would think of all this. Who they'd support in all of this. He questioned, sighing once again. I really am getting too old for this shit. Shikamaru, Dosu, Susumu, and Kuratsuchi had silently walked back to her apartment. The four walked upstairs until they reached her room and entered. We probably should get sleep soon, Susumu spoke up, frowning. Tomorrow will be a long day, it seems. It's going to be a long couple of days. Kuratsuchi shook her head, bringing her hands to her face. I cannot believe this happened. This is literally the worst thing that could have ever happened. So, there's absolutely zero you think can be done to salvage this? Dosa questioned. Perhaps nothing. Kuratsuchi interrupted, scowling as she looked at the Tokubetsu Jonin. What that guy did, with killing Kurobuchi and Jibachi, and trying to kill Suzumabachi, it'd be the equivalent of going to Konoha and trying to kill your last Uchiha. Your village would get pissed about an attack on the last of a historic clan. That's IWA right now. And Iwa's gonna want blood. She shook her head, her scowl deepening. Who even the hell is this Danzo guy? Dosa shook his head, frowning. An elder he's not the Hokage. Kuratsuchi interrupted again with a growl. How the hell can he manage to pull something like this off? It's treasonous. It's bullshit. How did Konoha let this happen? Dosa's frown deepened. I don't honestly, fuck all of this. The IWA Jonin hissed. How can your village not Kuratsuchi? Shikamaru spoke up, frowning. She turned her attention towards him. We didn't have anything to do with this. Stop yelling at us. Shikamaru. Her eyes narrowed at her boyfriend, tears starting to develop in her eyes. I have been trying like hell to fight back against Suzumabachi's anti-Konoha rhetoric for months now. And literally it all just went up in flames, all at once, because of this one asshole. She rubbed the tears out of her eyes and narrowed them even further at her boyfriend. It's not your fault, but this is at least Konoha's. Or the Hokage's. How the hell could this man get away with this type of shit? I don't know, but yelling at me or Dosa is not going to solve this. Shikamaru replied, sighing. We aren't your enemy, Kuratsuchi. We're here to help. Kuratsuchi's eyes moved downward to the floor. I know that. Kuratsuchi-san, Shikamaru-san is right. Dosa noted. We can report back to the Hokage and hold him accountable for this, and try and do something about Danzo afterwards, but for now, Konoha as an entity is not your enemy. We are not your enemy. We wish to help somehow. Susumu added, a small, sad smile on his face. I'm uncertain how, but we would like to. I don't know how, she said, sighing. It's just, things are going to get toxic here. A shiver went through her body and she brought her hands together to her face. That rally. I haven't seen something like that in a while. People were chanting things. Disgusting things. Down with Konoha, I presume? Dosa questioned. She nodded her head. A chuckle escaped his lips. That takes me back to days in Odogekure. It's scary, Kuratsuchi said, shaking her hand still in her face. That isn't the IWA I know. It isn't because it isn't. The people that were hurt. Susumu noted. Those beliefs were common in Mizu no Kuni, and it transferred to hatred for those with Kekkai Genkai. They're not permanent though, since they only exist from the hurt. It will pass. You just need to help it pass. Your grandpa's going to have to do his fight with Suzumabachi first, Shikamaru added. After that, we can work together and show that IWA and Konoha are okay. And we'll definitely get into contact with the Hokage so we can make sure that IWA knows we take this seriously and that our alliance and relationship is serious. She finally pulled her head out of her hands and looked at the group of Konoha shinobi, her eyes finally setting on Shikamaru. Sorry for yelling earlier. Don't apologize. It's alright. Shikamaru replied, shaking his head. Your feelings are valid. You have a right to be angry. Truth be told, I am as well, Dosu admitted, frowning again. I am aware of Danzo, but I was unaware he still had an authority to organize something like this. The Hokage needs to address this. Taya is going to get into contact with him, Sasuma noted. She'll give him an earful and we'll get this addressed. Most likely with this Danzo ruffian's body brought back to IWA as an example. Good. Kuratsuchi crossed her arms. This is treasonous, after all. I hope his execution is painful. With those words, the group started to say goodnight to one another. Sasuma and Dosu walked to their separate rooms alone while Shikamaru and Kuratsuchi walked together to her room. They both got changed and laid down on her bed. Things are going to be okay, Kuratsuchi, Shikamaru told her, a light smile on his face. Maybe not immediately, but you're strong. Your family is strong. Your vision of IWA is strong. It'll survive this. I know, she said, sighing. I guess I just need to really think about that, though. It's just weird, I guess. What exactly? Shikamaru asked. All that hate. All that anger. Konoha will pay. Konoha must pay. All hail Kamizuru Suzumabachi, Kuratsuchi quoted, closing her eyes. It's just… I don't know. I know the anger feels justifiable. But it was disgusting. It just felt overwhelming. I understand that, Shikamaru admitted, looking downward. Probably felt something similar to how I remember the bloodline executions in Nizu no Kuni were. Kuratsuchi's eyes focused back on Shikamaru. That's what Naruto was referring to back then, right? When he asked you to write a letter to me? Yeah, Shikamaru nodded his head, frowning. To some degree, Karatariki's anger about what happened to his village were valid, which I think made the whole thing worse to me. His justifiable anger was converted to pure rage and hatred that just swallowed everything around him. It was consuming to see. And see a crowd of people just scream about death to bloodline freaks. Yeah. Kuratsuchi nodded. That's probably right. Cause Suzumabachi definitely deserves to be angry about her brothers being killed. Her eyes narrowed. But if she has it her way, she'll take it too far. She'll kill everyone if she had it her way. She won't, though. That's what your grandfather and you are doing. You're stopping that, Shikamaru said. And you'll succeed. We're trying, she said, sighing. You'll succeed, Shikamaru affirmed again. And I'll be here to see it. And be able to make up for all the help you gave me after the Kirigakure Civil War. Kuratsuchi was quiet for a moment as she stared at the Nara. A smile developed on her lips as she pulled him closer to her, holding him in a tight embrace that he was quick to return. Thank you, she said quietly. No need to thank me, he replied. The two did not say anything else. They drifted off to sleep shortly after, still in their embrace. Upon leaving the Tsuchiku's office, Taya had followed Han back to his home, writing on her scroll the entire way back. Upon arriving back at his home, she finished it and walked into Han's living room. If you don't mind, I need some privacy for a second, Taya told him. Of course. Han nodded his head as he walked to his room. I need to get a few things together, anyway. Taya, alone in the living room, reached into a sleeve in her jacket and pulled out another scroll. She opened the scroll, which only had a large red-colored kanji for the word toad printed on it. She then reached into another pocket, pulling out a tube that had blood sealed inside it, Jiraiya's blood. She opened the tube, coating the scroll with Jiraiya's blood sample. She then ran through hand signs before slamming her open palm onto the scroll, over both the kanji and Jiraiya's blood. Summoning jutsu! A poof of smoke filled the room before Gamakichi appeared in the room. The orange toad looked around the area for a moment, looking for either Jiraiya or Naruto, before his eyes settled in on Taya. A frown developed on his face. You're not a toad summoner. How did you summon me? He asked. I used Jiraiya's blood and that scroll that he had prepped for me. Name's Uzumaki Tayuya. She greeted, waving her hand. You're Naruto's cousin then. I've heard of you. Nice to meet ya. Gamakichi greeted. His frown seemingly deepened. You know my pops is going to be pissed that you're doing this. Both you and Jiraiya are going to dash, yes, I get it. Tayuya cut off the toad, scowling. Gamabunta's going to want a sacrifice of tons of sake that I can't afford. I am well aware of that bullshit. That's why I told Jiraiya I'd only do this in case of serious emergencies. She held out her completed report. This is serious enough. I need you to deliver this scroll to Jiraiya. Like now. He can't wait for me to get back to Konoha to deliver this in person. Gamakichi nodded his head and grabbed the scroll from Tayuya. For what it's worth, if this is that serious, I'll make sure Pops doesn't get too pissed. He'll probably only demand a drinking night with you and Jiraiya. Just don't make a habit of doing this. I won't. Just make sure Jiraiya gets that quick, Tayuya said, crossing her arms. Gamakichi disappeared in a poof of smoke, returning to his world and heading to do exactly as Tayuya requested. The Uzumaki sighed, laying down on Han's couch. Jiraiya's going to be so pissed, she grumbled. Whatever. It's not going to be at me, he'll know why I sent that to him like that. You are talking to yourself. Are you okay? The Uzumaki turned her attention up towards Han, who was now back in the living room. The man was now carrying a small bag over his shoulders, which caused her eyebrows to raise slightly. Yeah. She nodded her head. Where are you heading to? To get Rashi. I should be back by tomorrow evening latest. Han said. You're going now? She asked. Shouldn't you wait until the morning? I barely get sleep as is. Besides, it won't take long. I have a feeling I know where Rashi is. If I leave now, we'll be back by tomorrow evening, Han said. And I need to drag him back here. It would mean a lot to Sandaime-san. Gotcha. Good luck with that, Tayuya said, shrugging her shoulders. Her eyes then softened slightly as she started to relax more into her couch. Hey Han. What do you think of all this? The Jinchuriki brought his hand to his chin, frowning behind his mask. I am well aware of what happens when the people of Iwagakure get angry. They are humans with stubborn, earthen hearts that take momentous amounts of pressure to change their ways of thinking. This news will infuriate the masses. Sandaime-san is going to need to be able to fight Suzumabachi off and end this now before this gets any worse. Do you think it will? She asked. For our sake, I hope not. Otherwise, I'll probably turn missing ninja. I do not wish to fight a war against Konoha, on this village's behalf, that is. Han admitted. So, I'll do what I can right now. And what I know would be that Inoki would benefit from Rashi being back in the village, both for training and to simply chat with him about the dynamics going on. So I'll be back. Understood. Tayuya waved her hand at Man. Bring him back quickly then. Han nodded his head in response as he continued to walk out of the house. Tayuya was now left alone. She remained still on his couch as exhaustion finally caught up to her, exhaustion from all the political drama in IWA. She quickly passed out on his cough, too tired to walk back to her bed or change. Let's try this out, Kabuto mumbled to himself. The Yakushi had set up a desk in the small laboratory and had stacked various kunai and shuriken on top of it. He stared at the items and clapped his hands together. Iron style! On cue, the iron weapons rose up from the table, floating it. Kabuto waved his hands in a circular motion, causing them to move on cue. Kabuto then focused his attention on one particular kunai and snapped his finger. The kunai's blade sharpened, turning into an even deadlier weapon. He then brought his hands together, causing all the iron to clump together into a large ball. Lava style! Kabuto opened his mouth and breathed out a stream of lava from his mouth that collided with the giant iron ball. The lava melted the iron before changing shape, forming a spiraling orb of lava in the air. The former right hand of Orochimaru stared at the orb for a moment, adjusting his glasses, before he rushed at it. He held out his right hand before touching the orb with his open palm. Explosion style! Upon contact, the lava orb erupted, creating a massive dust cloud throughout the lab. Kabuto looked around momentarily as traces of lava and melted iron fell onto the ground of the lab, melting into the floor itself. Kabuto then looked at his right hand, which still had smoke releasing from it as a result of the explosion. All three bloodlines were mixed into my DNA perfectly. Splendid. He chuckled, taking off his glasses momentarily to clean them. I'll need to test them out in better detail, but it's good to see that my body has not rejected them. As Kabuto pulled out a cloth and began wiping his lenses, his eyes focused on the cadavers in the room, the origin for his newly developed powers. I'll return those 3 back to their graves. I assume all of this drama in IWA has helped hide their disappearances, but I don't want to risk it for too long. I should also return the other samples as well. I got what I needed from those bodies. Although the body of Gari, perhaps I should give that one to Sasori-sama. He might appreciate the gift. He noted to himself as he finished cleaning and put on his glasses. If I have some spare time, maybe I should try and get a Kamizura body. I know those 2 Kamizura brothers just passed. Perhaps their bodies hold some secrets for me. I'm not sure how transferable their Kekkei Genkai and secret techniques would be with mine. Then again, I did say I'd look into that whole mess, didn't I? Kabuto spoke aloud to himself, chuckling again. Kabuto felt himself intrigued with the current political situation in IWA. There was a very realistic chance that, if the cards fell in certain ways, Konoha and IWA would go to war. He was also intrigued by Suzumabachi's mention of Shimura Danzo. It's about time that Warhawk fully understood the consequences of his actions, he noted, adjusting his glasses as he started to walk out of his laboratory. A grin developed on his face as he walked to the door of his laboratory. And I know the best way to ensure it blows up in his face the most. With those words, Kabuto left the lab, abandoning it entirely. Yo! Jiraiya! A poof of smoke filled the campsite at the Kunishimo no Kuni border where the Konoha shinobi and Fu were staying as Gamakichi appeared in the area. His appearance startled the entire group. Sasuke, Jiraiya, and Yamafu, who were awake, all turned to face the toad in surprise, while the rest of the group, who had all been sleeping peacefully and had been disturbed by his loud, booming voice. What the hell? Katsumi shouted. Where did the toad come from? Dude, it's past midnight. Fu hissed. What the hell? Gamakichi? Naruto said the toad's name with a yawn. What gives? Sup, Naruto? Been a while. You should summon me more. Stop summoning Gamaken, he's a boring dude. Gamakichi said, shaking at his head at his blonde summoner. He then turned his attention to Jiraiya. I need to give you something. From that Taya chick. Jiraiya's eyes widened. I only gave her the scroll and that blood sample to summon toads in a last resort situation to get a hold of me. For her to actually use it. His mind focused on her last mission, which caused him to grimace. What the bloody hell happened in IWA? Let me see her report, he said firmly. The toad nodded and held out the scroll Taya had written. I'm out now. Just know Pops probably is going to get into contact with you about how to pay him back for letting a non-summoner summon us. Gamakichi informed him as he disappeared in a poof of smoke. Jiraiya ignored the toad's comment as he read Taya's report. His eyes proceeded to widen as he processed everything. All of the information of growing hostility in IWA. All of the divisiveness between those who support the Sandaime and those who support the Kamizuru. How the Kamizuru and Kurigane are a united front against Konoha. All of the information there was easy to process and understand. What Jiraiya's problem, however, came immediately after when Taya began to report on the incident that had just happened, how Danzo ordered a hit and killed off 2 of the Kamizura grandchildren, and how Suzumabachi was using it as a rallying point against Konoha. What the hell? Jiraiya mentally snarled. Immediately, a rush of killing intent escaped the Hokage. The party around him all stared at him in confusion and concern. Godame-sama. Hinata frowned as she stared at the man. What happened? Jiraiya finished the report and pocketed it. His eyes then narrowed in on Yamanaka Fu, who was staring at him in moderate curiosity. Congratulations, your master may have damned our village's relationship with IWA. Jiraiya said sharply. Were you aware of an assassination plot against the Kamizuru shinobi? Yamafu's eyebrow rose slightly in confusion before he simply shook his head. I have nothing to say. Kamizuru? Hanabi repeated the name, frowning. As in the Kamizuru clan of IWA? The very one. The very one whose grandchildren have been active Konoha opponents in IWA politics. Jiraiya said sharply, his eyes narrowing furthering on the rude agent. Shimura Danzo, after sending out you and your comrade, sent a group to IWA to kill the 3 last heirs to the Shodite Tsuchikage. And they failed to kill Suzumabachi, and now IWA is blaming Konoha as a result. All eyes widened in horror. What? Hanabi choked out. But does that mean IWA is going to end our alliance? More than that. They could declare war, Sasuke said sharply, crossing his arms. War! Hinata felt her heart drop, recalling the events of the Kirigakure Civil War. Why? Why now? This same Danzo guy organized this. Kanji mumbled, shaking in fear and anger. Why? How? Because the Kamizura shinobi were anti-Konoha, meaning they could have been potential threats later. Jiraiya said, scowling. That does not justify an attack like this, though. That fucking idiot. They really think we caused it? Naruto asked, looking downwards. Can't. Weren't you going to execute this Danzo guy when we got back to Konoha? Can't we just show them his corpse and have it prove that we aren't against them? It's not going to be that simple. They'll just assume we're saving face. Sasuke shook his head. No, this justifies a change in perception to them. But it's not like we went to war or stopped our alliance with Suna after the bullshit with Orochimaru. Naruto added. It's IWA is a different village than ours, Naruto. Public opinion is different there, Naruto. Jiraiya interrupted. This could very well be salvaged there. But it could also not be. We won't know. Not for a little while, at least. Naruto turned his attention towards the root agent, glaring slightly. You know this is all your master's fault, right? If a war happens, everyone that dies is on his hands. Danzo-sama acts in Konoha's interests. Yamafu asserted, scowling. A war with IWA would end horribly. The Uzumaki interrupted. You know that, right? It would end horribly, even if Konoha won it. The last thing the elemental nations needs is another war. Hinata added. So many shinobi would end up dying on both sides. It is our duty to die for Konoha. Yamafu asserted. As long as Konoha lives and prospers, you know I'd probably die in that war, right, Fu and I? Kanji interrupted. The root agent looked at his brother in surprise. 'Cause if we went to war, then even the genin would get deployed. And I'm sure as hell not qualified yet to fight in a war. Do you think it'd be worth it if I died? Yamanaka Fu grew quiet as his eyes fell downward in thought. It doesn't matter. Think what you will. You're trained to think that way, after all. Jiraiya shook his head, scowling. Regardless, I'm going to have to prioritize this. Tayuya mentioned that she thinks it would be a good idea for me to arrive in IWA within a week or so, once the dust settles and Inoki asserts his authority. I'll have to do that. He sighed, shaking his head. He looked up to the sky, frowning. Well, we're all awake, and it's technically a new day. We need to keep moving. We need to get back to Konoha as quick as possible. Understood. Everyone said in agreement. The Konoha shinobi and Fu quickly packed up their belongings and left the campsite, heading back on the road towards the village. Naruto-kun. Hinata spoke, a frown developing on her face. Shikamaru-kun is in IWA, isn't he? He had a mission in Tsuchi no Kuni around the time we left, along with Dosa-san and Susuma-san. He may be, yeah? Naruto nodded his head as he closed his eyes momentarily in prayer. Shikamaru, you better be alright. As the group fell into silence, Yamanaka Fu was in silent thought as he replayed the conversation that had occurred around him, along with Kanji's words. War with IWA right now. Kanji is right. He would get drafted. And he would most likely die. Along with others. He noted. That would be worth. His mind stopped as he stared at his younger brother's fleeting figure in front of him. The same brother he had just come into contact with once more. The same brother who always followed him around the Yamanaka clan compound growing up. Not worth it, he mumbled under his breath. He spoke so silently that not a single person in the group heard him, but the words were now repeating loudly in Fu's head. And the words never went away. Morning came quickly to Iwagakure, and with the rising sun, the news of the rally began to quickly spread. Within hours, everyone in the village knew about Jibachi's and Kurobuchi's deaths, as well as Konoha's responsibility. Kuratsuchi had left her apartment early to go train with her grandfather and father, leaving the Konoha shinobi alone. Shikamaru, Dosu, and Susuma left later in the day to get breakfast and walk down the streets of the village. The entire dynamic, in one night, had shifted entirely. Instead of curious stares with mixed opinions behind each sets of eyes, all Iwagakure citizens, civilian and shinobi alike, were glaring at the three men. Many shook their heads and tried their best to ignore them while others were leaking killing intent. They were also talking amongst one another. I can't believe they're allowed to just walk down the streets. Didn't they just kill Shodai-sama's grandsons? They're allowed to walk here because Akatsuki is too busy kissing Konoha's ass to kick them out. How horrid! These monsters are just allowed to roam the streets. Should we try something? Get revenge for Jibachi-san and Kurobuchi-san? No, that Satsuki will punish us. We can't do anything, unfortunately. Karma will get them. It's depressing how much things have changed in just one night. Dosa spoke up, frowning. You're hearing everything they're saying, aren't you, Dosa-san? Susumu asked, shaking his head. I'm just drowning out the white noise. It is reminiscent to times in Mizu no Kuni during the Civil War. I wish I could, but it's difficult when they don't keep talking. Especially since my hearing is rather sensitive. Dosa's frown deepened. Also, I bet someone does try something on us. You think we need to be preparing for a fight? Shikamaru asked. Not immediately, but I bet so. The only thing stopping some of these people from attacking us right now is the fear that Inoki-san will punish them. The former Odo shinobi noted, biting his lip. All it takes is for one idiot who doesn't care about consequence to rush in at us. Shikamaru said nothing in response. He kept the pace forward as they continued to walk forward through the village, ignoring the hateful gazes and words. As he continued to walk by, he started to recall memories from long ago, when he noticed Naruto getting treated similarly from villagers in Konoha. People staring at him with thinly veiled disgust, saying things behind his back, but never acting upon them. A sigh escaped his lips. So, this is what it was like growing up in Konoha, wasn't it, Naruto? This feeling of isolation and anger, and you still wanted to be Hokage, after all of this? Shikamaru shook his head. That's just a prime example of your strength. 'Cause honestly, this is suffocating. The three Konoha shinobi continued to go forward until they reached their destination, a small cafe with a sign that read Finest Omurus in Tsuchi no Kuni. A worker was outside, talking to another customer, when he noticed the Konoha shinobi approaching. A frown developed on his face as he turned away from the customer and shook his head. Sorry, but we currently aren't taking more guests at the moment, he told them. Susumu blinked. I believe I just noticed a gentleman walk into your building just a minute ago. That was a minute ago. Not now. We're at capacity, the worker said, shaking his head. So please, go find somewhere else. You sure there's no availability? Shikamaru asked. Instinctively, Shikamaru took a step forward to look inside the building. Immediately, the cafe worker took a step back, blocking the door to the cafeteria. A panicked look was on his face and sweat started to drip down his face. PP, please don't make a scene out of this. Don't hurt me. I'm just doing what I was told. He pleaded. I promise you we don't have our room, so go find somewhere else to eat, please. Shikamaru frowned in response. This guy, does he think we're going to kill him or something? Without a word, Shikamaru sighed and walked off, Dosu and Susumu following behind. Something tells me we aren't going to find much luck for food in this village, Dosu noted, shaking his head. We most likely need to meet up with Risho-san or Roto-san and ask them to get food for us. Shikamaru nodded his head, but did not verbally reply. A troubled look was on his face as he brought his hand to his chin in thought. They really have bought into that story, haven't they? The civilians and shinobi here must think that we're violent and are wanting to kill them if we get the chance. He sighed. What a troublesome mess. As noon arrived in Tsuchi no Kuni, the sun became covered by clouds in the sky. Rashi took in a deep breath, enjoying the feeling of the air around him. The Yambi Jinchuriki was laying down in a patch of grass down by a riverside that was overlooking a small waterfall. A small wooden house was to the side that looked freshly painted with maroon-colored paint. Rashi had a peaceful smile on his lips and had a pen in his right hand, a notebook in his left hand. I know I told myself I'd take the time to start working on the next book, but damn is today nice. I could just sleep the whole day, he told himself as he began to close his eyes. That actually sounds pretty great right now. Rashi started to breathe lightly as his body relaxed. He did not sleep long, however, as he started to feel the familiar presence of another shinobi, another Jinchuriki. Ugh! He grumbled slightly as he opened his eyes. Han walked up to the riverside, looking down on the relaxed body of his fellow Jinchuriki. A chuckle escaped his lips. You seem peaceful, Han noted. I was, Rashi said, sighing as he closed his eyes. I regret telling you about this place years ago. I was just about to get some good, needed sleep. Well, for my sake and Iwa's sake, it's a good thing you had told me, Han said. Bah. Iwa's sake. Rashi grumbled as he pulled himself off the ground. You know, I kinda started feeling that old dream again, Han. Just leaving the village, going to explore the world. Setting up little cottages around the world where I could just relax, right, and maybe take some time to figure out the limits of my power as a Jinchuriki. I've noticed. You spend less and less time in the village, the Gobi Jinchuriki said, frowning. Any particular reason why? I don't know, the Yambi Jinchuriki admitted. The Yambi and I have been fighting more and more internally. Son Goku. A voice inside Rashi's head corrected. Rashi shook his head, ignoring the voice. I'm getting a bit sick of it, to be honest. So I'm trying to spend more time relaxing. Exploring the world. Seeing new things. Getting anything out of it that I can. And maybe along the way, learn a bit more about what it means to be a Jinchuriki. Seems a little late in life to be thinking about a self-discovery, don't you think? Han noted, chuckling. Oh, haha. Laugh at the old guy for having normal human thoughts. Bah. Rashi shook his head. Hope you know you're the only thing keeping me in IWA. If you were dead or something, I probably would have left a little bit ago, missing ninja status be damned or not. Well, glad to see I matter to you at least. Han smiled behind his mask. You're good company, Han. Course you matter. Rashi smirked at him. Anoki-san probably would miss you though, if you left. Hopefully it really is not just me alone that would keep you in the village, the Gobi Jinchuriki said. I suppose that's true. That stubborn old man needs someone to make sure he's not doing something stupid and tiring himself out. Rashi sighed. His face started to turn more serious as he looked at his fellow Jinchuriki. You made a comment a second ago, for Iwa's sake or something. Something going on right now? Yes. Kamizuru Jibachi and Kurobuchi have died, Konoha is being blamed for their deaths, and Suzumabachi is going to challenge Inoki to Yama no Osu. Han answered. The red-haired Jinchuriki's eyes widened for a moment. He shook his head as he pocketed his notebook and pen. I've been gone for about a month, tops. How the hell did the village go to shit so quickly? Gods, he grumbled. Inoki really can't be left alone for longer than 5 minutes, can he? He wants to talk with you, Han clarified. Course he does. Bah. Rashi sighed as he looked up at the sky. We leave now and we'll be back around sunset. Let's not waste any time, I guess. With those words, the two Jinchuriki walked off together, heading back to Iwagakure. Your cooking smells delicious, Jawamushi-san, Susumu complimented. After meeting up with Risho and Roto, the Konoha shinobi were brought to a small, modest civilian neighborhood in the center of Iwagakure to the only place that would serve them, Roto's home. Upon arrival at the beige-painted house, they were escorted inside to a Western-style dining room and sat down at a large golden-yellow table with 10 chairs. The 3 Konoha shinobi sat together on one side of the table next to each, and Risho sat right to them. On the other side was Roto, who was sitting next to 2 brown-haired teenagers, a girl with bright blue eyes who looked around the same age as Roto, and the other a boy with brown eyes who appeared 2 years younger. Both were dressed in casual clothing, with the girl wearing a bright red dress with a floral pattern on it while the boy wore a dark brown tank top and a pair of brown pants. At the head of the table was a woman with brown hair that was held up in a ponytail with brown eyes. She wore a white apron over a dark blue blouse and had on white pants. All 8 people at the table had plates in front of them that were filled with tuna, rice, edamame, and sushi. An overwhelming aroma of seafood filled the entire dining room. Think nothing of it, Susuma-san, the woman at the head of the table said, chuckling slightly. And please just call me Keiko. Any friends of Roto-kun are welcome here. Even if they're from Konoha? The teenage boy next to Roto said, crossing his arms. Roto immediately elbowed him, which caused him to wince. Yes, Akemi. Because they're cool. And shit isn't like what you're hearing. Keiko immediately turned her attention towards the IWA shinobi. Roto, we're at the table. No swearing. Immediately, a shiver went down his spine. Yes, Mom. The group started eating from their plates. Upon taking their first bites, the Konoha shinobi started to eat rapidly. "The tuna is amazing," Shikamaru praised, grinning between bites. "I've never had it this fresh before. All freshly caught this morning," Keiko admitted, grinning. "Whenever Roto-kun isn't on a mission, he and I go out to a nearby lake outside of the village to fish for our lunch or dinner. Cheaper, tastes better, and a lot more fun than buying fish. I remember you saying you fished," Shikamaru noted, turning his head back to Roto. "Back on that mission at Tenchi Bridge. You remember from back then? Dude, that was years ago and we all hated each other back then," Roto said, chuckling. "Good times. Ah yes, getting jumped by S-rank missing ninja and nearly dying on one of our first missions out of the village," Risho reminisced, rolling his eyes slightly. "Good times indeed. F-. The civilian-born shinobi noticed the look his mother was giving him, which caused him to shake his head. "Shove off, Risho. So, you are Kuratsuchi's boyfriend, right, Shikamaru-san?" Keiko questioned. "I am." Shikamaru nodded his head, chuckling. "Don't know why, though. She's way too good for me. She's too good for everyone. What a lovely girl," the woman noted, her smile widening. "She really helped straighten up my son out of some bad habits of his back in the day. I'll say," the girl sitting next to Roto noted, grinning. "Was actually hoping they would have gotten together. Kuratsuchi would have been an amazing sister." "Exactly, Takara. Kuratsuchi makes an amazing sister. Dating her would be weird." Roto shook his head. "I was hoping that Hinata girl would have been with you all, actually," Keiko added. "Roto-kun would always go on and on about the most beautiful girl he had ever met." "Oh yeah? I forgot you had a thing for her." Shikamaru chuckled. "He still does," Risho said, smirking. Roto's response was to raise his middle finger. He noticed his mother scowling at him, so he dropped the gesture and opted to shake his head. "I mean, course I liked her. And of course I still do, she's phenomenal. But no, of course she and Naruto got together," he said, crossing his arms. His eyebrow then rose towards Shikamaru. "They're still together, right?" "They are," Dosa spoke up. "Damn it." He shook his head, sighing. "Well, good for them still. I'm still surprised you'd even be into a Konoha shinobi, Roto and I. Or that Kuratsuchi would be," Akemi noted, as he got up from the table, his eyes focused in on Shikamaru. "You're all a bunch of IWA murdering jerks, after all." "Akemi!" Keiko turned her attention towards her youngest. "Apologize, why? These guys brought in those guys that killed the Kamizuru brothers. They should be apologizing," Akemi said, crossing his arms. "We're sorry," Shikamaru said, bowing his head. Immediately, the whole table turned to face Shikamaru. "Huh!" Akemi blinked in response. We didn't bring those shinobi in, but Konoha still has a responsibility in this, for not dealing with this Danzo guy earlier. It is our fault. And I'm sorry." The dining room was silent for a moment as everyone stared at Shikamaru, who still had his head bowed. After nearly a minute of silence, Roto leaned over and elbowed his younger brother. "Well? He apologized. And for something he didn't even have to do," he said. Akemi did not say anything for a brief moment. He stared at Shikamaru for a few seconds before he walked towards the door and left the house. "Ugh!" He shook his head, sighing, before he turned his attention back to Shikamaru. "Sorry about him. He's a little bit sensitive to what's going on in IWA right now. It's fine. I wasn't lying. Konoha does have some responsibility in this," Shikamaru admitted, sighing. "That may be true, but do not eat yourself over it," Risho said, shaking your head. "You already know who is specifically responsible. You don't need to eat yourself over it personally." Roto looked as if he was about to chime in with Risho, but he noticed that his brother had left the door on his way out of the house. He sighed and got up out of his chair to close the door. As he was about to close the door, he noticed something outside. His eyes widened. "Hey, there's like a big group that has formed in the area," Roto noted, frowning. "And I think I see Suzumabachi here, and Kusari." The Konoha shinobi and Risho immediately got to their feet and walked to the doorway. As Roto said, near the entrance to the neighborhood, a group of civilians were crowded around the center of the village streets. They formed a circle around two people, Kamizuru Suzumabachi and Kurigane Kusari. The five shinobi walked forward, all five making an effort to avoid any of the civilians detecting them. As they walked closer, they noticed that Roto's brother Akemi was amongst the crowd. The closer they got, the more they could hear from a speech being delivered. "We come before you, good people of IWA, to voice your concerns. Make the village know our plight. Make them understand our feelings," Suzumabachi pleaded, bringing her hand to her chest. "Make Akatsuki understand that IWA has had enough of being a subservient ally of Konoha. Make him accept my challenge for the Tsuchiki's hat so we can change the direction of IWA. The Kurigane clan stands firmly by Kamizuru Suzumabachi's side. I will fight side by side her against Inoki and his chosen partner. Make this demand known. Let Inoki know that we are fighting to improve IWA," Kusari declared. "For IWA! For IWA! For IWA!" The civilians in the area began to shout louder and louder at their words, applauding with each chant. "Kusari's going to be in the fight too?" Risho said, frowning. "I thought Yama no Osu was a one-on-one thing," Dosa said, his eyes turning to face the IWA shinobi. "It normally is, but there's precedent for a 2 versus 2 fights," the Kurigane Black Sheep noted with a sigh. "Still, the Kurigane clan stands by Suzumabachi's side? Kusari is going to fight with her." Roto was about to comment, but he noticed that his younger brother was amongst the crowds of civilians chanting for IWA with the crowd. He shook his head, trying his best to ignore it. Things are only going to get uglier from here, Shikamaru realized. Damn it. Style, erupt. In the Tsuchiki's private training ground, Kuratsuchi and Katsuchi finished the same hand seals, forcing a large volcano to rise from the ground underneath Inoki. The Sandaime was unable to move away in time and was forced inside the volcano. Kuratsuchi jumped directly against the volcano and placed her hands on it. Lava style, volcanic ash spread. The volcano started to shake momentarily as gray volcanic ash filled its inside. Before the ash could affect Inoki, however, the Tsuchikage slammed his fist against the volcano around him, causing it to crumble into piles of rock and dirt that hit the ground. He then floated through the air, seemingly ignoring the volcanic ash around him and rushing directly at Kuratsuchi. "Try harder!" he demanded as he extended out his fist. Earth-style, stone fist jutsu! Rocks materialized around Inoki's arm just as he attempted to deliver a punch to Kuratsuchi's face, but the kunoichi avoided by jumping into the air. Lava-style, scorching rocks jutsu! Kuratsuchi breathed out a barrage of large, flaming rocks surrounded by lava directly at Inoki. The Tsuchikage responded by delivering punches with his stone-covered fist to each oncoming rock, shattering them instantly before they could hit him. "I said try harder, damn it!" he demanded again. As he continued to block Kuratsuchi's barrage, Katsuchi rushed at him, his fist covered in stone as well. He attempted to land a punch at Inoki from behind, but his father, while still smashing Kuratsuchi's attacks with his right arm, blocked him with his left, grabbing onto his stone-covered fist with his bare left hand. Earth-style, stalagmite! With a sharp step on the ground, Inoki created a large pillar directly underneath Katsuchi's feet before he could move, forcing him upwards. While Kuratsuchi was still breathing out her lava rocks, she made a singular hand sign. Earth-style, mobile core! The stalagmite that Inoki had just created started to topple, falling to the ground directly above him. The Sandaime's eyes turned to focus on it for a second as he jumped to his right before it crashed down on him. Predicting his movement, Kuratsuchi changed the direction of her lava rocks just in time. Inoki was unable to avoid one of the oncoming rocks and was hit head-on, forced into the ground as the lava started to burn at him. He hissed in response. Kuratsuchi proceeded to fall down from air directly down towards Inoki and the large lava rock. She held out her fist as she punched downward, her fist now covered by lava as well. Her fist pierced the rock effortlessly and continued until it made contact with Inoki, punching him in the gut. He coughed up blood as he felt his chest get burned. Before Kuratsuchi could hammer on him, Inoki moved his legs and proceeded to kick Kuratsuchi off him, sending her flying in the cave to the ceiling, causing her crash against it. She coughed up blood herself as she fell to the ground, catching herself barely. She joined her father, who was suffering from a similar injury from Inoki's previous jutsu. "That's more like what I was talking about," Inoki acknowledged, chuckling as he faced his son and granddaughter. He spat out some blood as he cracked his knuckles. "Keep that up. I need more of a challenge. Father, you should probably rest for a moment," Katsuchi noted in between heavy breathing. We've been training since the morning started. This will only exhaust you. You suggested we stop whenever you were training me. Now we need to tell you that," Kuratsuchi added. "Fine." The Sandaime sighed as he relaxed his stance. "We'll take a break for lunch." Inoki proceeded to walk off, stretching his muscles as he left the training ground to go prepare food. Kuratsuchi and Katsuchi watched the Sandaime Tsuchikage leave with a concerned look on his face. "He's pushing himself hard," Katsuchi noted, frowning. "I haven't seen him like this in years." "Is he that stressed about Suzumabachi?" Kuratsuchi asked. "He's probably more concerned about just being strong for Iwa's sake," her father noted. "He knows that she won't be the last opponent championing anti-Konoha sentiments. A new wave of fights are going to start. He needs to be strong and ready for them all. There's a lot of responsibility related to that hat," Kuratsuchi noted, crossing her arms. "More than people will ever realize," Katsuchi said as he turned to face his daughter. "I hope you use this time yourself, Kuratsuchi. This is what your life as Tsuchikage could very well be like." Kuratsuchi did not say anything in response. The father and daughter walked silently towards the exit of the training ground, prepared to rest for a moment and join Inoki for lunch. The Konoha shinobi made quick progress on their return back to Konoha and, by 2 o'clock, were already halfway through Yu no Kuni. They were on track to make it to Hai no Kuni by tomorrow morning and would be back in Konoha in 3 days. As the group continued on with their progress, Naruto fell back in formation, heading to the back of the group, alongside Sasuke and Yamanaka-fu. Sasuke, let's switch places," he requested. "I can watch this asshole for a moment." Sasuke's eyebrow rose slightly. "What for?" "I want to talk to him for a moment." "Won't be long. We can switch when I'm done," Naruto replied. Sasuke shrugged his shoulders before he picked up his pace, falling in line with Naruto's original position by his students. With that in mind, Naruto continued to move at Yamafu's pace, making sure the root agent was not trying to sneak away. As Naruto started to look at Fu, he noticed the troubled look on his face. He doubted the man even noticed that he was here. A frown developed on his face as he snapped his finger in front of his face, causing him to turn to him. "You got a lot on your mind?" Naruto asked. "I have nothing to say," Yamafu replied. Yeah, I'm getting that." The Uzumaki rolled his eyes. "Look, I've been meaning to talk to you one-on-one for a little bit, and I've been hoping we could have had a peaceful, nice conversation where we talked about kanji or something, but that's not happening. Instead, we're talking about what we learned about last night." "We won't be talking about anything," Fu replied, crossing his arms. "I have nothing to say." "Yes. You do." Naruto shook his head, scowling slightly. "Tell me about Danzo." Fu shook his head. "I have talk to me about his ethics." The Uzumaki interrupted, causing the Yamanaka to stare at him in confusion. "I already know everything he's doing that's relevant. I don't need to know secrets. I want to know motive. Why is he doing things? Why is actively trying to sabotage our relationship with the other villages? Danzo-sama has done nothing wrong," Fu insisted, scowling back. "His primary goal is keeping Konoha strong, stronger than the other major shinobi villages." "But why do it this way?" Naruto asked. "With ways that risk war? That risk lives? If we rout the enemy, we assert our strength. If we eliminate them, there's no one who will stand in Konoha's way. In the end, Konoha will be at peace," the root agent noted, his eyes starting to zone out. "The people could finally rest, for they would have no enemy to fear. They would be surrounded by protectors that were stronger than anything around them, an active foundation that weeded out developing enemies that kept the village constantly, always safe. But what good does that all do when Konoha suffers alongside the other villages?" Naruto shook his head. "I will never, ever, think it's okay to just simply destroy the other shinobi villages out of fear that they could be a threat later. But even if I did ever think that way, I would never want to do the things that Danzo would do that would bring Konoha shinobi into unnecessary wars. 'Cause didn't you say that's what Danzo wants to do, right? Keep Konoha at peace? That's the exact opposite way of doing it." "You could see it that way, I suppose," Yamafu replied, frowning. "But it ensures peace for the Konoha of the future. What good is a future if there's no present?" Naruto asked, sighing slightly. "I get wanting peace. My ultimate goal is to help bring peace to Konoha and the elemental nations as a whole, but this isn't the right way." Yamanaka-fu was quiet for a moment. He closed his eyes, thinking on an appropriate response. He wanted to simply reject them. He fought back the urge to just ignore them. However, he could not ignore some of Naruto's logic. If Danzo-sama is one extreme, you are the other extreme point, he noted. Do you simply believe it is possible for all the elemental nations to exist in harmony? With no threat of war? With no concern that one of them could be growing too powerful? Without one of them actually becoming that powerful and trying to assert its strength? Naruto frowned in response. It doesn't hurt to try at least, you know? An alliance should at least be tried. But I'm not as extreme as you think I am. If a war was absolutely necessary, if fights needed to be fought, then I'd be willing to fight in them. Oh? The Yamanaka looked at him in surprise. But they should be as a last resort. They shouldn't be something intentionally provoked. A war needs to be about keeping the people safe, not about asserting strength or stopping someone from becoming too strong, the Jinchuriki stated. That's how innocent people die. Innocent people die regardless. Fu shook his head. And that's why any war at all should be a last resort, Naruto said, sighing. Not something that's encouraged prematurely. Not like whatever Danzo is doing in IWA. Fu did not reply to Naruto. His eyes started to zone out, which caused Naruto to shake his head. I'd like to think you're not a bad guy, Fu-san. Kanji talked about you a lot before we met. And I do feel, to some degree, you think you're doing things for Konoha. You're doing things because you value the village. I do too. We all do, he said. But you have to at some point realize that nothing can justify some of the actions that this Danzo guy has done and is trying to do. If you truly value peace for Konoha, peace where the people of the village, including your brother, can live safely without risk of pointless death, then you have to acknowledge that fact. All this root group is doing is causing Konoha pain. With those words, Naruto picked up his pace, switching spots back with Sasuke. Fu's eyes were focused on Naruto the entire time as he bit his lip, trying to come up with a rebuttal. Trying to come up with any form of argument back. He has to be wrong. He has to be. Fu affirmed, biting his lip so hard that he was now drawing blood. If Danzo-sama is causing more harm, then what really has been the point of my life all these years? Yamanaka Fu now had more questions, and he was now terrified to think of the answers. Ugh! Anoki groaned as he walked back to his office. He, Katsuchi, and Kuratsuchi did not stop their sparring outside of their lunch break. By the time they finished, at sunset, they had accumulated over 10 hours of fighting and all three walked away from the training ground completely sore. Same time tomorrow as well, although I'll probably take a few more breaks. Make some public appearances to refute Suzumabachi's claims. And I guess publicly acknowledge and accept her challenge. Anoki noted, his hand on his back, that Sachikage made a stop by his office before deciding to head home to get rest. As he walked into his office, however, he noticed that the room was already occupied. Rashi was in the room, sitting in his chair, writing at his desk. You made yourself at home, bastard. Anoki shook his head, chuckling. Rashi briefly looked up at Anoki. A small smirk developed on his lips as he closed his book, and he stood up. You weren't here when I got here, so I decided to wait for you and kill some time writing. I'm at the penultimate book of my series and it's almost ready to be sent to the publisher. Rashi noted. Well, congratulations. The Sandame replied. How long have you been here? About 30 minutes ago. Han and I rushed back. The Jinchuriki said. Anoki shook his head. I'd ask about how your mission went, but I know it was a success. The only reason it took you so long was because you were fucking around somewhere in Tsuchi no Kuni. You can't blame me for that. I already told you I want a leave of absence at some point to do some self-discovery, and you still haven't approved it. Rashi replied, scowling. You owe me that, at least. I owe you shit. The Sandame Tsuchikage replied, smirking in response. Stubborn fence-sitter. The Jinchuriki shook his head, chuckling. Although, I'll permit your little self-discovery adventure if you do not mind assisting me. Anoki started. What? This related to your duel with the Kamizura brat? Rashi's eyebrow rose. It's not a duel anymore. She's publicly challenging me with Kurigane Kasari. Anoki replied. Huh? The red-headed shinobi blinked in response. What for? Why does she want a 2 versus 2? I know the game. It's political, getting more support from the masses with the very public support of the Kurigane clan. The Tsuchikage noted, rolling his eyes. Bah. I've been in the political game longer than both of them have been alive. I know her tricks. Realization dawned on Rashi's face as he crossed his arms. You want me to be your partner, don't you? Anoki nodded his head. When I sent Han out to get you, I just wanted you as a sparring partner. But since this is going to the way the fight's gonna go, I want to fight them with you. I'm not sure I'm your wisest option, Anoki. Rashi admitted, crossing. I can use the Yambi's chakra, but it's not gonna help me any other than what I can take from it. Son Goku, damn it! The voice repeated in Rashi's head. You're still feuding with the Yambi? God damn it, Rashi. You've been its Jinchuriki for over 40 years. Anoki hissed. Not even Han has that bad of a relationship with his Biju. Han avoids nearly all conversation with the Gobi. Seems to me I'm better in that regard, at least. Rashi acknowledged with a chuckle. Whatever. Anoki shook his head. That's not even why I wanted you to fight with me. They want to fight me as a Kamizuru and a Kurigane? I'll bring in a Kinryu to assist me. I can play the little political game. Now you know I only have Kinryu blood. I haven't been associated with my clan in a long time. Rashi noted, rolling eyes. It'll be good enough for the public who will watch the fight. Anoki replied, smirking. Besides, there's no one else I'd rather have fight by my side. Oh, I see. Now you're gonna get sentimental about it to get me to accept. Rashi shook his head, chuckling. No, it's just a fact. We've known each other for how long now? 50 years? The Tsuchikage said, chuckling as well. I've known you longer than the Yambi has known you. I know you, Rashi, and what you are capable of. There's no one else I'd rather have fight by my side. I think I'm gonna cry. Rashi snorted, grinning response. Fuck off. Anoki rolled his eyes. Are you going to agree or not? I'll fight. Rashi said, raising his hands. We'll kick their ass. Show the rest of IWA what two old guys are capable of. Anoki snorted in response. Heh. Sure. As night fell over Iwagakure, Yakushi Kabuto walked through the village streets, his eyes wandering, a small frown on his face. Few were out this late at night, and even fewer passed him a sparing glance. He came across like any other IWA shinobi walking through their village, giving him a moment to focus on his thoughts. Other than Konoha, IWA was the village that he spent the most time as a spy in. Memories returned to him as his eyes moved from building to building. It's so weird to think how Nono was walking down these streets back then at the same time I was. Kabuto noted, his frown deepening. He tried to push these thoughts away, but he could not help himself. Memories started to blend together, merging with those from his time in the Kanehigakure orphanage. His thoughts turned to the image of a young woman with shoulder-length light brown hair, emerald green eyes that were behind a pair of identical glasses to the ones Kabuto wore. Orochimaru-sama is clearly disappointed in me and my priorities. Mother would probably be disappointed in me as well, wouldn't she? Kabuto noted before shaking his head, sighing. Nono did not even recognize me when she died. Her thoughts on my ethics are irrelevant. The former right hand of Orochimaru continued to walk through the village, lost in his nostalgia, until he arrived at his destination, the Kamizura clan compound. Upon arriving, he shook his head one last time, forcing memories back to the corner of his mind, and walked onto the estate. Kabuto walked through the courtyard, staying quiet as he moved from each building's shadow to the next. Before long, he found Kamizura's Suzumabachi. The IWA shinobi was on her knees, bent downward at a small, wooden shrine that was marked with the kanji for first. A picture of Kamizura Ishikawa, the Shodite Tsuchikage, was displayed on the outside. Behind the shrine were a series of burial mounds that belonged to multiple Kamizura clan shinobi. 2 mounds looked recently created with pictures of Kurobuchi and Jibachi placed in front of them. Suzumabachi's eyes were closed, and her entire concentration was focused on the shrine. Bees were buzzing by her side, appearing equally as focused. As Kabuto moved closer to the shrine, he noticed that she was praying aloud. I will win. I have to win. The fate of Iwagakure is in my hands. I need to take over so we can stop before Konoha routs our village entirely from the inside. The Sandaime has grown senile and needs to be removed. I need to save our village, the village that our clan has fought for generations upon generations, ever since the end of the Warring Clans era and the beginning of the Shinobi Village era. She spoke. Kurobuchi. Jibachi. I will fight in your honor. I will win in your honor. Suzumabachi bowed her head further, placing it against the ground. Ishikawa-ji-san, watch over me, I will do everything in my power to steer this village in the correct path. What a beautiful sentiment. Kabuto noted, a small smile on his lips. Immediately, Suzumabachi pulled herself up. Bees rushed forward at Kabuto, surrounding him, all poised to strike. The Kamizuru turned to face him as he lifted up his hands in surrender. I'm impressed you got onto the clan compound without alerting me or my bees until now, but you have a death wish sneaking up on me this late at night, she said sharply. Forgive me. Kabuto chuckled lightly. You just seemed particularly busy all throughout the day, and I wanted to talk to you when I knew we could have a private conversation. Her eyes narrowed. Who are you? Hajime Yurishi. Kabuto replied. Jonin. I've been away from IWA and have only been back for about a week or so. And what do you want to talk to me about? Suzumabachi asked. I wanted to discuss your plans to beat Tsuchikage, he replied. He noticed the bees starting to get closer to him, which caused him to raise his hands higher. I am no enemy, I'm a friend. I was there for your speech last night, and I was moved by it. Her eyes narrowed further. Oh? I felt your rage. We all did. Of the unjust actions in Konoha. We all feel that same desire you feel, for the destruction of Konoha. Kabuto answered, his eyes focusing downward. I feel it too. I wish to see Konoha burned to the ground in revenge. The buzzing noises around Kabuto started to soften. The Akatsuki member looked up and noticed that the bees were starting to back away and were focusing on him in curiosity, not in suspicion. He then turned back to Suzumabachi and noticed a similar expression on her face. My mother, she died. At the hands of a Konoha spy in this very village, Kabuto said, a scowl developing on his face. Left to die in the alleyways. Her murderer was a coward, and the village he served was even worse. I feel your loss, Yurishi-san. Suzumabachi spoke softly, a sad smile on her lips. I understand. And it is for the sake of your mother, for my brothers, and for all like them that I fight. And why, one day, Konoha will burn. Yes. I can feel that from you. Kabuto smiled as he brought his hands to his eyes, pushing up his glasses as if he were rubbing away tears. That is why I want to support you. I want IWA to move in the right direction. And I have a way that I think can help. The suspicion returned to the Kamizuru's eyes. What are you talking about? I have an idea. I want to work with you. And I think have a way to help you win your bout with the Sandaime. Kabuto replied. I am winning my fight, she stated sharply. I believe you can, but I am offering something that can guarantee it, he stated as he made a hand sign. Let me show you what I mean. You need a partner in your fight, don't you? I don't need one. It's an idea suggested by Kasari. And he is my partner. Suzumabachi crossed her arms, her eyebrows raising slightly. Are you offering to fight with me in his place? What do you have that he doesn't? Summoning Jutsu, Edo Tensei. Directly in front of Kabuto, a coffin arose from the ground. Suzumabachi stiffened and the bees quickly surrounded the coffin. Before she could react, the door opened up, revealing to her the body inside of it. Her eyes widened as a shiver went down her spine. What the? Suzumabachi's eyes slowly turned to look at Kabuto. Yurishi-san, what the hell is this? Kabuto chuckled as he snapped his finger. The body walked out, revealing a man that was completely covered in bandages with only a pair of black pants as the only clothing he wore. The only exposed skin he showed was his nose and his eyes, colored black and void of all life. I am offering you a trump card, a weapon to deliver some poetic justice in your fight against the Sandaime, Kabuto said as he straightened his glasses. I'm offering it to you, in exchange for a few favors, so that way we can usher in a brand new era for Iwadakure. Suzumabachi was silent for a moment, her eyes moving back and forth from the bandaged man to Kabuto. They finally settled on the Akatsuki member as her expression calmed down. The initial fear was now replaced with a genuine curiosity. Yurishi-san, who exactly are you? She asked. I'm no one in particular, Kabuto answered as he held out his hand to her. I'd like to continue this discussion more. Do we have a deal? Of course. Suzumabachi nodded her head as she reached out, shaking his hand. Chapter 88, The Tsuchikage Showdown. You what? Kasari shouted. 2 days had passed since both he and Suzumabachi publicly challenged Inoki to Yama no Osu. They had gotten an acknowledgement from Inoki and an agreed challenge date, tomorrow. Kusari had spent all of the day in the Kurigane clan dojo, warming up and preparing for a long, hard fight with Inoki and Rashi. When Suzumabachi shortly before midnight, he had initially assumed that she was coming to talk strategy about how to approach the fight. He was not expecting her to bring another shinobi, a man he had never met before, and was definitely not expecting to hear that she had changed her mind. I appreciate the idea, Kusari-san, but I do feel like I have a more suitable opponent to fight against Inoki, Suzumabachi said, crossing her arms. I hope you aren't too offended. More suitable opponent? Kusari snarled, glaring at the Kamizuru. How dare you insult me like this? Do you not know who you are talking to? I am the finest shinobi of the Kurigane clan and the strongest and most active shinobi in Iwa's ranks. There is not a person alive who is a better candidate to fight the Tsuchikage. Exactly. Kabuto spoke up, chuckling. The Kurigane immediately turned to face the man that Suzumabachi brought with her and glared at him. His hand instinctively went to the scabbard at his side. Urushi-san, who even the hell are you? What merit could a worthless, clanless shinobi bring to Suzumabachi's side in this fight? You are mistaken. I am not the one who will be fighting by her side. Kabuto shook his head. The Akatsuki member made a single hand sign as a coffin rose up from the ground. Kusari drew his blade, as if preparing to fight, until the coffin opened up. His eyes widened at the sight of the body inside of it. What jutsu is this? He questioned. An S-ranked kenjutsu that Urushi-san stole from Konoha, Suzumabachi answered. Kusari's eyes moved to the man. Is that really him? Is he alive? Is it him? Yes. Is he alive? No. Kabuto shook his head as he took off his glasses to clean them. The jutsu I used is derived from the summoning jutsu. He'll follow whatever orders I give him, and I will simply give him orders to follow Suzumabachi. He won't be summoned at full strength, as I expect he would have the strength to override my control if given the opportunity, but he will be able to fight with more than enough. And besides, his very presence is the most important thing for the fight. I want him to fight by my side. Suzumabachi insisted, a grin developing on her face as she reached into the coffin and placed her right hand on the body's shoulder. I want Inoki to face this man and realize firsthand how hard he has fallen down the wrong path with this alliance with Konoha. And I want the rest of IW8 to see which side our village's history really supports. I see. Kusari sheathed his sword. His eyes were focused on the Edo Tensei summon. Suzumabachi-san, I hope you understand that this jutsu is going to be viewed as crude. I'm certain you walking into the battle with this man will turn off some of the civilian population. They'll see this as too dark. I'm aware that some might think that bringing back the dead for a fight is insensitive, but it's not like he's going to be silent. He will be given some degree of autonomy tomorrow and will be able to speak. And he will voice his thoughts on the matters. Suzumabachi noted, her grin growing. And that'll surely keep the population in line and in support. If you insist. Kusari noted, scowling slightly. His eyes then moved to Kabuto. So, your role is to summon him for the fight? Are you doing this out of general goodwill or are you getting anything out of this? I am doing this mostly out of goodwill, but Suzumabachi did promise me one thing in exchange. However, it's very little. Kabuto answered, still cleaning his glasses, not looking Kusari in the eye. And what is it? Kusari's eyes narrowed. Nothing to concern you about, he replied. Kusari said nothing in response, opting to fume silently. Tomorrow is the day. Finally. Suzumabachi noted, her hand tightening on the Edo Tensei's shoulder. Time to usher Iwagakure to a glorious new future. I wish you the best of luck tomorrow, Suzumabachi-san. After all, your success would mean quite a lot to me. Kabuto chuckled to himself, his eyes focusing on the Kamizuru and the Edo Tensei. Morning came to Iwagakure. People across Iwagakure woke up almost instantly, and rushed down the streets to observe the first Yama no Osu since the end of the Third Shinobi World War. The people rushed to the Iwagakure Stadium, deep within one of the mountains in the eastern part of Iwagakure. The battlefield was incredibly large and filled with large stalagmites and holes throughout the ground that linked together through underground tunnels. The field was rough with no patches of green, only rock and dirt were present on the battlefield. The battlefield itself was surrounded by a small mountain formation that had been converted into seating areas, with stairs going down from the top of the mountains to the bottom where the battleground was at. The seats were all crafted from the stones with dark red cushioning on them. At the very top, overlooking the mountain range, was a small office-like building with windows that gave a clear picture of the entire battlefield and the audience. Crowds of people rushed in, taking seats. Shikamaru, Dosu, Susumu, Kuratsuchi, Risho, Roto, Taya, Han, and Katsuchi all walked in together, taking seats as close to the battlefield as they could get. This place looks unique. I love the design. Susumu complimented, a smile on his face. It feels very appropriate for a battlefield in Iwagakure. This battleground was made with that in mind. This is where every Yama no Osu fight occurs, Kuratsuchi noted, although more recently it has doubled as the battleground for the third round of the Chunin exams whenever IWA hosts them. The Chunin exams in IWA have the third round here? Shikamaru asked, his eyes widening. Kuratsuchi nodded her head, which caused him to chuckle. That almost sounds unfair. This environment definitely suits someone that can use Earth-style ninjutsu, which is more common here in IWA. I suppose so, but there's a lot of history here, so the shinobi that fight here are honored to do so. Risho spoke. Also, no genin who has fought here has ever had a strong enough earth element to use this environment like you're thinking. The only people who could would be the Jonin and Kage level shinobi, which we're about to watch, Dosa added. In the center of the battleground stood Inoki, wearing the Tsuchiki's hat, and Rashi. The two elder shinobi were standing still, waiting for Suzumabachi to arrive and for the battle to commence. Both had serious expressions on their faces. So, Suzumabachi and Kusari are going to get their asses kicked, right? Roto asked. I mean, they're fighting the Sandame and Rashi, the Yambi Jinchuriki. I lean towards Sandame-san and Rashi winning, but you can never be too certain. This will certainly be challenging. Han spoke up, frowning behind his mask. I worry this match will be closer than we expect it to be. Suzumabachi is no slouch, if you have ever observed her fight. I'm not certain I would say she is the Sandame's equal, but she is close to it at least, Katsuchi added. She is where this fight is going to get particularly difficult. Come on, Gramps. Kuratsuchi closed her eyes in prayer. Do it. I believe in you. Lots of chatter could be heard from the chairs as people spoke amongst one another about the fight. Rashi was looking around the crowds of people while Inoki was focused on the top of the stairs, waiting for Suzumabachi to arrive. She should have gotten here early, just like us, bah. That's already a sign she's not ready for the title. Inoki crossed his arms. Technically, the fight doesn't start until 8 o'clock. That was the agreed upon time. She has a few more minutes. Rashi noted. Still, it doesn't leave a strong impression. The Sandame shook his head. Heh. I suppose. Rashi chuckled to himself. His chuckling immediately stopped as he noticed someone in the crowd. Hey, Inoki, didn't you say that Kurigane Kusari was her partner? Inoki nodded his head. He is. Rashi shook his head, frowning. Apparently, he's not. He's in the audience. Inoki turned his head in the direction Rashi was looking. As his partner noted, Kusari was sitting in the front row, alongside the Kurigane clan head and a couple other important members of the Kurigane clan, with his trademark scowl. He appeared to be dressed in the standard Kurigane clan armor and appeared as if he was ready to fight, but he was simply sitting down, his eyes focused intently on both Inoki and Rashi. Do you think she changed partners? Rashi questioned. That would make zero sense. Kusari has not only been a huge proponent for her publicly, but I think he's one of the few shinobi in the village that could actually fight us at the level needed. Inoki noted, bringing his hand to his chin. Do you think she plans on calling off the 2 versus 2 and just challenge you to a solo duel? The Jinchuriki questioned. I hope. Inoki admitted. I would respect that. Greatly. The two shinobi turned their attention back to the stairs. Everything was silent in the Iwagakure Stadium for 5 more minutes. Then, Suzumabachi then appeared at the top of the stairs. Cheers started to sound throughout the stadium as people began to applaud her. There she is. There's Kamizuru Suzumabachi. Good luck, Suzumabachi-sama. All hail the Yandame Tsuchikage. Suzumabachi smirked in response to the cheering and started to walk down the stairs. As she began to walk down the stairs, another figure, the Edo Tensei, appeared behind her and began walking down the stairs right behind her. The second its appearance was noted, the cheering and applause stopped. Silence filled the area as people stared at the man following behind Suzumabachi. Inoki's eyes widened as he felt his stomach drop. What the devil? Rashi shook his head, his eyes glued to the man coming down the stairs. How? Mu-sensei? Anoki spoke softly. Instantly, chatter returned to the crowds of the people, as everyone focused entirely on the Edo Tensei. That man, that's Mu? Mu the non-person? Naidame-sama? Naidame-sama is alive? He can't be alive! He was buried here. His body was brought back after his fight with the Naidame Mizukichi. Then who the hell is that? Some look-alike? No, that's no look-alike. That has to Naidame-sama. The Konoha shinobi and their entire row looked at the revived Naidame Tsuchikage with complete horror. This? Oh my god! Kuratsuchi felt the urge to throw up. She shook her head, trying to fight the feeling. What the hell? Roto sputtered out. What's going on? What kind of sick joke is that? That can't really be the Naidame Tsuchikage, right? Risho asked. There's no way. Musama died. Nearly half a century ago. This could be real. This could all be real. Kuratsuchi spoke, a memory returning to her. I remember during the invasion in Konoha led by Orochimaru, Gramps told me about how Orochimaru apparently revived the dead. He summoned the Shodai Hokage, Naidame Hokage, and our Shodai Tsuchikage to fight. He summoned Ishikawa-sama from the dead. Orochimaru did no jutsu like that. The Edo Tensei. Taya affirmed, her eyes narrowed on Mu's body. Look at his eyes and you'll see that his eyes are lifeless. That's the Naidame Tsuchikage alright, but right now, it's just a living corpse. It's the exact same jutsu Orochimaru knew, and Suzumabachi knew this jutsu and used this technique to bring back the Naidame? Han asked. There's no way she should know it. Dosu shook his head, his eyes narrowed in suspicion. The Edo Tensei is a kenjutsu from Konoha. Orochimaru only stole the information about it just before leaving Konoha. There's almost a 0% chance Suzumabachi knows the Edo Tensei, or even knew enough to seek it out. Then who summoned Mu? Kitsuchi demanded, his eyes narrowing. Is this the work of that Danzo fellow again? Susumu wondered. That makes no sense. Han shook his head. Assuming he knew the jutsu, why would he help Suzumabachi if he just tried to kill her? If anything, he'd want to assist Inoki in this fight. Recollection hit Shikamaru. Then Naruto's eyes widened as he recalled Naruto explaining to him their mission in Sunagakure, where Gaara was confronted by his father, the Yandame Kazekage. Yakushi Kabuto. Shikamaru said the name, scowling. He knows the Edo Tensei, and he's already proven himself capable of sneaking in and out of the major shinobi villages. He has to be the one to have summoned him. I believe you're right. Dosu realized, gritting his teeth. That fiend must be here. Hold the fuck up. I know how that little shit's mind works. What does Kabuto get out of this? Why would he help Suzumabachi? Taya questioned. I don't know. Shikamaru said, his scowl deepening. But it must be him. He has to be the one responsible. Dosu proceeded to get up from his seat. We need to find him. We can worry about this Kabuto person later. If he is responsible, he most likely is somewhere nearby. We can find him later. Susumu suggested, shaking his head. For now, there's something more important to focus on. The Uzumaki gestured to the battlefield. Dosu grit his teeth for a moment but nodded his head and took his seat back. Gramps. Kuratsuchi shook her head. Please be safe. After what felt like an eternity, Suzumabachi and the Edo Tensei finished their walk down their steps. They then walked to the center of the battlefield, standing face to face with Inoki and Rashi. Finally. It's time for our fight, Suzumabachi stated sharply. She noticed the horrified, confused look on Inoki's face as the Sandaime did not even acknowledge her. A smirk developed on her lips as she raised one of her eyebrows. What's the matter? You look like you've seen a ghost. That comment took Inoki back to the situation at hand. He turned to face Suzumabachi and scowled at her, blasting her with killing intent. I am already familiar with the twisted, evil jutsu you used to summon Mu-sensei. How fucking dare you stand here, in my face, with him at your side like this? Inoki screamed, his face getting redder and redder with each word. You have no right to the title of Tsuchikage if you think a jutsu such as this is acceptable to use. Spoken like a man indoctrinated by Konoha. Naturally. They want their kenjutsu to themselves and the rest of the world to be good little sheep and to not try and replicate it. Suzumabachi taunted, rolling her eyes. You're weak, Inoki. A real Tsuchikage would not be concerned with petty morals. Anoki was about to scream back at her again, but was stopped by the voice of his former sensei. Anoki. Mu spoke up. Anoki turned to face the man. Ignoring this wretched jutsu that has summoned me, is all of this really true? Did a third shinobi world war happen? And did you form an alliance with Konoha after it? I did, Anoki admitted, frowning. For the sake of IWA, though. Our villages were finally at a place where they could move on from all of the bitterness and form a solid foundation for peace. Peace. Suzumabachi repeated the word with a snarl. Tell that to my brothers. Tell that to the rest of the Kamizuru clan that has died in the Third Shinobi World War. Or the Kurigane clan, or all the countless shinobi slaughtered by Konoha's Yondaime Hokage and other shinobi of theirs. An alliance is not always the wrong call, but you should be taking advantage of it. Using them as a tool to advance your own agenda. Mu noted, shaking his head. From what I have heard, from Suzumabachi-san here, I can tell you have not done that. IWA is worse than it has been in years. What merit do you have to make that claim, Naidame-sama? Rashi asked, glaring at the revived man. War casualties. The Kurigane clan suffered extensively and the Kamizuru clan was nearly decimated. I was also informed of how, when Sunagakure and another minor village invaded Konoha, Anoki aided them in their defense instead of taking advantage of a prime time to watch Konoha fall with none of the blood on Iwa's hands. How foolish. The Naidame answered, frowning behind his bandages. That was a disappointment to hear about. I didn't believe you were capable of such an inept political move. I thought I instructed you better. Anoki did not answer immediately and closed his eyes, feeling the pain of his former sensei's disappointment. It is as I said, Mu-sensei. Times have changed. Letting Konoha fall to Suna and Oto would have been a bad decision. Not aligning with Konoha would have been a bad decision. There are bigger threats in the world that require cooperation, and peace requires being willing to look past the past and move on. He said, shaking his head. I remembered you as wiser, Mu-sensei. You were always a calm, rational person, yet I see here that after being summoned by Suzumabachi, you simply absorbed all the information she told you and took it as fact. That's not the Mu I remember and respect. Seems old age hasn't dulled your wit, at least. Mu noted, chuckling slightly. But I stand by what I said. I taught you better and laid out foundations for you to follow that would have brought IWA to an even higher status, and you did nothing with it. IWA is doing alright, Naidame-sama. And will continue to do alright. Rashi spoke up, crossing his arms. You would think that, wouldn't you? Suzumabachi said, glaring at the Jinchuriki. 'Cause it is. You know more if you didn't abandon the village on a quest for personal strength, only coming back once you found it. Rashi added, turning to face her. Anoki's had to face some of the hardest years in Iwagakure's history, both from the Third Shinobi World War and keeping IWA afloat afterwards once the village suffered immeasurable losses, both financially and militarily, but he stayed strong and kept our village safe. Nothing changes that fact. Mu brought his hand to his chin, turning to face the Jinchuriki. Rashi, correct? I don't believe we were well acquainted before my death. Your words interest me. Would you care to elaborate? Mu, you're not here to debate, and he has nothing worth listening to. He's just a lapdog to Anoki, a parrot for his ideals. Suzumabachi spoke up, glaring at the two elderly men in front of her. Now's not the time for words. It's time for us to restore IWA and take down Ryotenda no Anoki. Mu's body stiffened slightly. His hands moved together, and he started to get into position into fight, channeling chakra. I think he has plenty to say that I'd find interesting, but I'm not in a place where I can refuse, am I? Mu spoke, his eyes narrowing on Anoki. So, this is happening. You are going to fight me with the body of my former sensei. Anoki noted, scowling as he began channeling chakra in his hands. I will not fall to you. You disgrace IWA with this, and I will make sure you learn the most painful lesson you'll ever learn. And you disgrace IWA through forgetting our history, doing nothing to help IWA grow and only sucking off to Konoha. Suzumabachi spat out. The Kamizuru snapped her fingers. A swarm of thousands of bees quickly appeared from the air, surrounding her body. Rashi clapped his hands together and began channeling chakra. Red chakra slowly surrounded his body, forming 4 tails of chakra around his body as his physical appearance became more feral. Both Anoki and Mu extended their hands outward. Dust style, atomic dismantling jutsu! The two men released two large three-dimensional chakra shapes, Anoki's resembling a drill and Musa pillar, from their palms. The two blasts of chakra rushed forward, covering the stalagmites in between inside the shapes, until the two jutsu collided. Upon collision, an explosion occurred inside the chakra structures, destroying the stalagmites, reducing them to dust with no rubble. Thousand Bee Stings Jutsu! The bees around Suzumabachi turned to face Anoki and fired their stingers off. Anoki made a hand sign, causing his body to levitate. The Sandaime lifted himself off the ground, avoiding the stingers. Suzumabachi then made a hand sign, causing the individual stingers to explode, releasing finer, smaller needles from each stinger that flew into the air in various directions at Anoki. Monkey Flame Release! Rashi opened his mouth and breathed out a massive stream of green fire that flew forward into the stingers before they could make contact with Anoki, causing them to melt. Heh! Rashi smirked as he looked over at Suzumabachi. I know you're strong and all, but you're not your Gramps. You're not at his level of beer-related ninjutsu yet to fight back against its weak spots. My lava release makes me a bad opponent for you. Suzumabachi grit her teeth in response. You think, huh? Before Rashi could respond, Mu closed the distance between himself and the Jinchuriki. Perhaps that's why I am here. Mu noted as he brought his hand forward to Rashi. Fuck, I can't let this guy touch me, not even once. Rashi cursed. The Jinchuriki jumped back, just in time as Mu missed grabbing onto his arm. In response, Mu made a sweeping gesture, forcing the ground underneath to rocket upwards. Rashi was sent flying into the air, coughing up blood. Ninja Art! Hornet Wings Jutsu! Suzumabachi jumped into the air as a pair of golden wings made from honey developed on her back. She flew directly to Rashi's free-falling body as she held out her right hand, which developed stingers on each finger. Overwhelming 5-needle dash, lava style, scorching armor! Just as Suzumabachi's hand was about to touch Rashi, lava surrounded his body, merging with the red chakra around him. The Kamizura flew backwards, avoiding touching him. Rashi was then able to continue his free fall, safely landing on the ground. Dust style! Before Suzumabachi could fly anywhere, she was surrounded by a large three-dimensional cube of chakra. She looked upward just in time to see Anoki floating above her position, a grin on his face. Learn your place, brat, he said. Surrender dash, ninja art, honey bomb! Suzumabachi clapped her hands and opened up her mouth, releasing a golden-orange-colored ball of honey from her mouth. The mouth made contact with the edge of the chakra cube around her, causing it to explode on impact, spraying honey throughout the inside of the cube. What's she planning? Anoki questioned, his eyes narrowing. The cube then started to melt. His eyes widened as the cube quickly vanished and the honey fell to the ground, landing on the surface and creating burn marks. Suzumabachi was still mobile in the air, her body now covered in the honey. That's... Anoki shook his head, scowling. I've never seen anyone shatter the chakra prisons of dust release. I am the one who is replacing you. It's only fitting I'm the first person to accomplish such a feat, then. Suzumabachi replied as she flew upwards. Anoki flew backwards as she rushed at him. Suzumabachi then chased forward towards him, extending her right palm forward, the stingers aimed at Anoki. Earth style, grand stalagmite! Mu stomped his foot on the ground, creating a gigantic stalagmite that rocketed up into the sky towards Anoki and Suzumabachi. The stalagmite was placed to hit directly behind Anoki's positioning. The Sandaime moved to his left to avoid being blocked. His progress was slowed slightly, however, causing Suzumabachi to reach him. Her right palm grabbed onto his left arm. Overwhelming 5-needle sting! Anoki hissed in pain as the stingers on her fingers injected venom into his bloodstream. He glared through the pain and reached out with his right arm, grabbing onto her honey-covered body. Earth-style, weighted boulder jutsu! Instantly, Suzumabachi's gravity changed, causing her body to become infinitely heavier. Her body fell from the sky as her wings began to crumble until she hit the ground, creating a massive crater. Fucking dash! Anoki's eyes widened as an overwhelming pain coursed through his body. He felt himself choke up blood slightly. Shit. Get rid of the poison. He brought his right hand to the newly formed stinger wound on his left arm and began channeling chakra. Dust style, particle removal jutsu! Anoki's hand started to glow white. He winced in pain for a brief moment before the pain subsided. He then flew back to the ground, landing next to Rashi. Mu jumped over to Suzumabachi and tapped her body, removing the gravitational distortion. The Kamizuru jumped out of her crater and proceeded to glare at the Sandaime. I am genuinely surprised that you're still able to move around. I didn't think my poison would have killed you, but I expected to see you writhing in pain, she admitted. He used dust release to combat it, Mu answered. He disintegrated the poison in his bloodstream on an atomic level. Based off my own personal use, the dust release is quite the effective counter against poison-related techniques. It'll take more than that to stop me, Anoki replied in between breaths. However, Anoki, I have now seen you use dust release 3 times, and 2 of which were used rapidly, with little preparation time. While I am impressed that you managed to release those jutsu on demand so quickly, I am also incredibly aware of the strain of doing those jutsu like that would cause to you, the Nidaime noted. I wonder, keep using dust release like that and you'll probably not be able to fight much longer. He's right there, Anoki, Rashi said, frowning. You need to chill with those jutsu. You'll end up doing some serious damage to yourself if you spam it like that. I'll do whatever I need to do to win this fight, Anoki replied sternly, crossing his arms. Whatever isn't going to be enough, Suzumabachi replied. I need to see the Anoki that I remember training, Mu added as he clapped his hands together. He then started to form a 3-dimensional cube in between his palms. I need that man to still be alive in order to stand against me. Anoki's eyes widened. Rashi I'm on it, the Jinchuriki replied as he brought his hands together. Lava style, scorching rocks jutsu. Rashi breathed out a barrage of lava-covered rocks from his mouth that flew at Mu. Before they could make contact with him, a group of bees flew directly in front of him, forming a wall. Upon impact with the lava rocks, the bees started to melt, turning into honey. The honey quickly covered the rocks, weighing them down and forcing them to hit the ground. Anoki shook his head and he made a step on the ground. The ground underneath Mu and Suzumabachi rose up, forming a massive stalagmite. Both Mu and Suzumabachi managed to jump away in time, however. Suzumabachi's honey-covered wings reformed on her back as she jumped into the sky as Mu's body began to lift above the ground. Quick! Mu noted, frowning underneath his bandages. He compressed his hands, turning the cube in his hands into a 2-dimensional figure. But not quick enough. I advise you to get off the ground now. Shit! Anoki cursed as he brought his right hand to Rashi's back. Earth style, lightened boulder jutsu. Dust style, area disintegration. Both Anoki and Rashi's body began to elevate above the ground just as the 2-dimensional structure in Mu's hands made contact with the ground of the battlefield. As soon as the structure touched the earth, it expanded throughout the entire battlefield before destroying every stalagmite and raised rock structures instantly, turning them into nothing but dust. What the hell? Roto shook his head, his stomach dropping. What kind of jutsu is this? It is my father's and Nidaime-sama's dust release, Kuratsuchi answered, crossing her arms. One of the most destructive forms of ninjutsu in existence, with the ability to destroy a target on a molecular level. Literally, the Nidaime Tsuchikage just wiped out everything on the ground. Like, completely. If Rashi or Anoki were even touching the ground, they would have died. Taya noted, shaking her head. I can't imagine the strain it is to fight on that level. Anoki and the Nidaime have a jutsu style that only the other can effectively combat. Han noted, frowning. No doubt Suzumabachi took that into consideration. Because she knows that her own jutsu aren't effective against Rashi and Sandaime-sama, she resorts to this bullshit. Roto noted. You can't take her out of the equation just yet. It would be unwise to do so. Sasuma noted, bringing his hand to his chin. She landed a good hit on Anoki-san, and I know she must have more tricks up her own sleeve. Both he and Rashi-san are going to need to be careful. Gramps. Kuratsuchi's eyes were narrowed on the Sandaime, frowning. Why are you using dust release so much? Didn't you just warn me about the problems with using it so much back to back? Make sure you don't get too far from me, Rashi. If Mu-sensei is going to start using area disintegration, then I'm going to make sure I can get you off the ground when necessary. Anoki warned. I appreciate the concern, Anoki, but I'm not gonna be a liability. Focus on the fight around you first and foremost. Rashi noted, frowning. Before Anoki could respond, the duo were completely surrounded by a swarm of bees around them. The bees then began to secrete a honey from their stingers that launched towards at the men. Anoki and Rashi ascended before the honey could connect with them. Suzumabachi made a hand sign. Rock hive. The honey solidified, turning into a large rock formation that resembled a beehive with openings. The rock-shaped hive stayed afloat in the air as bees began to slowly come out of the openings. The newly formed bees rushed Inoki and Rashi, extending their stingers outward. As both men dodged, the bees began to glow a white color. Bee-bomb jutsu. Rashi and Inoki moved back in the air as quick as they could as the bees exploded. The force of the explosions created a thick cloud of smoke that nearly covered the entire sky. As the smoke began to clear up, Mu flew through the sky towards Inoki and Rashi. He flew directly above Inoki before he kicked downward against Inoki. The Sandaime parried the foot with his right arm, but was forced back downwards into the ground. How did this third shinobi war happen? Mu asked as he continued to apply pressure, forcing Inoki into the earth. Inoki, using his left arm, made a sweeping gesture. A column of stone rose diagonally, smashing into Mu's body and knocking him off. It was a war of attrition, caused when the Sandaime Mizukage declared war on Konoha. Inoki answered as he clapped his hands together. Another column of earth rose up underneath Mu's position. The Nidaime jumped away in time and charged back at Inoki, making hand sings. The ground underneath Inoki opened up, creating a sinkhole that swallowed him. How did IWA get involved? Mu pressed. He made another sweeping gesture, causing the sinkhole to seal itself. Before the ground was recreated again, Inoki flew out of the hole. Floating above Mu, he made various hand signs, creating multiple stalagmites underneath Mu. The Nidaime proceeded to fly into the sky, but the stalagmites continued to rise. IWA was hurting at the time, and we were running poor. I wanted to increase our wealth, and an alliance with Kiri increased our revenue pool. And I was looking forward to a chance to getting Konoha back for the Second Shinobi World War. Inoki answered. When did we align with Kiri? Mu questioned, his eyes narrowing on the Sandaime as he flew to the left, getting out of range of the stalagmites. The Nidaime Mizukage and I had just killed each other in the Second War. I was aware of that. The Sandaime Tsuchikage shook his head, frowning. IWA was poor at the time and I felt like we needed an ally badly. It was a mistake at the time. I'm not denying that. The first of many mistakes. Suzumabachi shouted as she flew towards the Sandaime's position. Her bees flew ahead of her, each extending their stingers. You led the Third Shinobi War horribly. Inoki clapped his hands together, forming a dome of earth around his body. The bees continued to try and pierce the dome with their stingers. They damaged it, causing the rocks to crack. How many men died in the Third Shinobi World War? How many Kurigane? How many Kamizuru? How many common citizens of IWA died? Suzumabachi grit her teeth as she made a hand sign. How many were killed by the Yondaime Hokage? How many lives have you forgotten about when you made that damn alliance with Konoha Gakure? Rashi made a hand sign before exhaling out a massive green fire stream from his mouth towards Inoki's dome. The flames rushed around, incinerating the bees and melting them. You can't blame the loss of lives on Inoki. War and death are synonymous. Rashi glared at the Kamizuru. Inoki is the only reason IWA got out of war when we did. If anything, he stopped the death count from rising any further. By surrendering. Suzumabachi reminded. IWA never surrenders. Mu added, clapping his hands together. Instantly, the rocks around Inoki shattered, turning into dust. Inoki was revealed in the center, with a large three-dimensional cube of chakra in his hands. He quickly made a sweeping gesture as the cube surrounded both Mu's and Suzumabachi's bodies. Quick timing! Mu praised, chuckling as he brought his hand outward, channeling chakra into it. But not quick enough! Rashi! Inoki turned to the Jinchuriki. I'm on it! The Jinchuriki took in a deep breath before he started to exhale. Lava style, dragon's breath! As Mu touched the surface of the chakra cube around him and Suzumabachi, shattering it instantly, Rashi breathed out a large stream of red lava from his mouth that flew through the sky towards them. The lava rushed into both Suzumabachi, completely encasing their bodies in it. Within seconds, Suzumabachi flew out of the stream of lava. Her body was covered with beeswax and honey, preventing her from taking the lava head-on. As she flew out, however, the beeswax armor began to fall off her body and to the ground. Her skin was very from heat and inflammation, and she was swearing profusely. Bastard! She hissed. The lava stream in the sky began to fade, as if being disintegrated. Rashi's eyes widened as he quickly cancelled his jutsu and jumped away. A large cylinder-shaped structure made contact with the ground, creating a massive explosion, disintegrating all signs of Rashi's lava. Mu floated from the sky back down to the ground. The knight-aimed Tsuchika's right arm was melted off, and his left seemed heavily wounded. You used your dust release to trap us for your partner to hit us with a jutsu we couldn't avoid. I'm impressed with both of you for the quick work with that technique. Mu praised. Without my arms, this match should be easier for you. Inoki did not say anything in response. His eyes narrowed on Mu's missing right arm. Before long, particles of dust began to form, recreating the right arm in its place. A scowl developed on his face. I knew it would do that. The Sandaime grumbled. My arm just grew back. Mu turned his head to face Suzumabachi. This technique you used to revive me makes me essentially immortal, doesn't it? If my limbs just regrew, I'd assume I would survive a killing blow. You're here until you have no use. Suzumabachi replied, crossing her arms. How wretched. Mu shook his head, his frown turning into a scowl. We can't do anything about this guy then. Rashi realized, his eyes starting to widen. We just have to wait until he forces us to submit. 'Cause he'll be able to fight forever. Back when Orochimaru revived Shodai-sama and the Shodai and Knight-aim Hokage, Jiraiya was able to combat it by sealing their souls back into a scroll. Inoki recalled, frowning. Rashi, I don't suppose you have any proficiency in Fuinjutsu? Inoki, you've known me for over 50 years. Have I ever shown any interest in Fuinjutsu? Rashi asked. It doesn't hurt to ask. Inoki grumbled before his eyes narrowed on Suzumabachi. Best way to handle him would be to handle Mu-sensei's current master. In this case, it's Suzumabachi. Incapacitate her, and we defeat him too. If you can. Suzumabachi noted, grinning. I've been waiting for this moment for so long, Inoki. I'm not going to let you or your monkey sycophant stop me from saving IWA. She made a hand sign. The rock hive started to crack. Intruder! An Iwagakure shinobi tried to scream but found herself unable. Blood was pouring from her chest, and she quickly fell to the ground dead, she body leaning against the entrance to the Iwagakure torture and investigation unit's prisoner residence hallway. Yakushi Kabuto casually pushed the body to the side and walked through the door. The Akatsuki member then began to walk through a dark, marble hallway, blending into the shadows as he crept forward. Along the walls were iron doors with a small window one could look into. As Kabuto walked past each room, he glanced through the windows. The rooms were all simple, small cells, each housing a random prisoner inside. The prisoners were usually laying down in bed. Some of them had chains attached to their bodies and all had chakra sealing tags placed on their skin. Where are they? Kabuto wondered, scowling. The Akatsuki member continued to make his way through the hallway for 2 more minutes, looking into each room. He finally stopped upon looking into one room and noticing 2 occupants inside. A grin developed on his face. Finally! He said, sighing in relief as he placed his right hand on the door. Iron release! On cue, the iron cell door started to collapse on itself, creating a giant hole opening the room to the outside. What the fuck was that? Kabuto chuckled as he walked into the room. Both Kanjiki Itaro and Kanjiki Metoro were together in the room, both chained to the walls. Pardon the interruption. I hope I didn't interrupt any lovely chit-chat between the two of you, Kabuto said. I don't think you'll mind, though. Who the fuck are you? Itaro demanded, his eyes narrowing on the forehead protector. Did you just smash that door like that? You a Kurigane or something? No, I'm not. I'm Hajime Urushi — Kabuto cut himself for a moment before he shook his head, frowning. No. I'm Yakushi Kabuto. You both can call me by my actual name. I don't intend for us to stay in IWA for too long. Yakushi Kabuto. Metoro frowned in response. Are you breaking us out? Another chuckle escaped Kabuto's lips as he felt out his hands. 2 large snakes rushed out from his sleeves. They opened their mouth and bit down on both Itaro's and Metoro's necks. Both men's eyes widened as they hissed in pain as blood began to drip down their necks. What the hell? Itaro groaned. The newly formed snake bite quickly formed into a seal that resembled the kanji for snake. What was that? Metoro demanded, his eyes narrowed. Was that a curse? No. I don't really have any invested interest in curse marks or anything. That's just an insurance policy. Kabuto noted, almost talking to himself as he adjusted his glasses. A mark of the Snake Clan. They can find you now, wherever you are. Itaro seemed to want to shout something back, but Kabuto proceeded to walk over. A chakra scalpel developed in his hands as he sliced through the chains that held him against the wall. He then did the same for Metoro, freeing both brothers. He then swiped forward twice, cutting the chains on their hands. I don't suppose you need me to destroy those chakra sealing seals. You can do that yourselves, Kabuto said. This is happening. You're actually busting us out? Itaro said, eyes narrowing on the man. Why? What are you getting out of this? Metoro asked. We've never met. I heard you two were locked in here and I wanted to employ you for something. Kabuto answered, chuckling. No need to worry about the details for now. I marked you both for a reason. When the time's right, I'll find you both and we can get down to business. Look, if you want us to do something for you, sure. Whatever. Itaro replied, grinning. He reached for the sealing tags placed on his body and pulled them off. Upon taking the last one off, he held out his hand, channeling chakra into it, creating a small ball of lava in his palm. We're pretty honorable guys if you're on our good side. You're getting us out of this bullshit, so we owe you one. You said you'll find us? Then do so later. If you need us, we will be more than willing to assist you in whenever. Metoro added as he pulled off his own sealing tags. We appreciate this. With those words, the Kanjiki brothers rushed out of their prison cell, making their escape out of Iwagakure. Those two are eccentric. But if the reports I've heard about them are true, they'll be useful asset to use later. Kabuto noted, chuckling. I'm sure Pain-sama will agree. But now I need to make progress of my own. With that thought, Kabuto rushed out of the cell. The rock hive in the sky broke open, revealing a massive hornet that buzzed angrily, turning its head downward at Inoki and Rashi. Let's get this fight moving along, Suzumabachi said as she made a hand sign. Kamizura's secret technique, a million bee stings. The giant hornet pointed its stinger in the direction of Inoki and Rashi before it fired off a barrage of needles from it. As the needles flew through the sky, they began to multiply, turning into more and more needles by the second. Inoki made a hand sign, causing large rocks from the earth to rise and fly around his and Rashi's bodies. They spun rapidly around each of them, blocking the oncoming stingers. We're fighting too defensively, Inoki. We need to go on the offense, Rashi said sharply. Inoki nodded his head as he made hand signs. Earth style, Earth Dragon. A large dragon made of stone and dirt formed underneath Moose and Suzumabachi's bodies. The two shinobi jumped up into the air and began to float away as the dragon began to fly towards them. Inoki then snapped his finger, causing the earth dragon to implode, unleashing the rocks that made up its body to scatter around, rushing through the sky. The rocks moved much faster than the dragon and a few slammed into Moose's back and Suzumabachi's head, causing her to bleed. Now, let's heat things up some more, Rashi declared as he crossed his arms. He broke formation, causing more lava to surround his body. The rocks around his body, still blocking oncoming stingers, were now coated in lava as well. The Jinchuriki charged forward on the ground, leaving a trail of lava with each step he took. He then jumped into the air towards Suzumabachi and held out his fist. Lava style, volcanic stream! Rashi extended his fist outward, causing lava to rush from his fist in a stream. Suzumabachi flew upward more, avoiding the attack. This is all you're capable of when Inoki's not setting you up, huh? The Kamizura noted smugly, making a hand sign. Pathetic! She opened her mouth and proceeded to spit out a ball of honey directly at Rashi. The Jinchuriki pointed his fist again, and another lava stream burst forward, slamming into the ball of honey and creating an explosion. Honey proceeded to fall onto the ground, melting the surface. You say shit like that, but you know my fighting style counters yours. That's why you're keeping me at a distance, Rashi noted. He then turned his head, smirking slightly at the sight of the night-aimed Suchikage approaching him. And it's why you're having him do that work for you. The Jinchuriki jumped into the air, creating a plume of lava under his feet to propel him upward just as the night aim reached him. Mu stopped his approach before hitting the lava plume before he flew into the air, reaching Rashi's position. Mu-sama, you do see how horrible this situation is, right? Rashi questioned. Suzumabachi literally brought you here to fight a battle that, in theory, can't be lost. What honor does this bring IWA? All I see is that she's too afraid to fight unless she can guarantee herself victory. She's a safe strategist, which is useful, but this situation is morally bankrupt. Mu admitted, frowning. I would never attempt such behavior. The night aim reached outward towards Rashi, trying to grab onto the man, but Inoki flew behind him, his right arm covering itself in rock. Earth-style, rock hammer jutsu! The rock around Inoki's arm began to change shape, forming into a giant hammer. Mu turned around and began to channel chakra into his finger, creating a single, white stone in his hands. Earth-style, power gem! The stone Mu formed launched from his hand directly at Inoki just as the sandaime slammed the earth hammer down into Mu's body. Mu was slammed into the ground hard, creating a massive hole as Mu was completely submerged in the earth. The white stone pierced the floating rocks surrounding Inoki's body and struck him in the shoulder, piercing his body and creating a hole and causing blood to pour from the open wound. He proceeded to choke blood as he began to fall slowly to the ground. "D-damn it dash!" Inoki shouted in pain as he was hit by stingers from Suzumabachi's giant hornet, who now had an opening on his body thanks to Mu's jutsu destroying a segment of the rocks around his body. He began to choke in pain as poison entered his body. D-dust style, particle removal jutsu! As Inoki began to concentrate on removing the poison from his body, Suzumabachi flew towards him, stingers developing on her fingers. Monkey flare release! Rashi breathed out a massive stream of green fire at Suzumabachi, forcing her to fly away from Inoki. She glared at the Jinchuriki before flying directly at him. "Why do you keep defending him?" she hissed. "He's my partner here! I'm not letting you take him down!" Rashi shouted as he made hand signs. Lava style, scorching rocks jutsu! The Jinchuriki breathed out a barrage of molten rocks from his mouth directly at Suzumabachi. The Kamizura flew around, avoiding each oncoming attack, and getting close to him. As she approached, he held out his right hand, creating another stream of lava from it. She flew above, avoiding the attack. "The Kinryu clan suffered losses too. Why do you still support this failure of Akatsuki?" Suzumabachi demanded. "Our village needs to move on. Our village is moving on. You're the one stuck in the past." He rolled his eyes in response as he jumped into the air, flying directly at her. "And don't call me a Kinryu. I know this might be a bit hard for you to understand, but I discarded my clan name. I'm just Rashi, shinobi of Iwagakure." Rashi jumped to Suzumabachi's position and delivered a lava-covered fist straight to her face. The Kamizura was sent flying back to the ground hard, beeswax falling off again upon impact. Asshole! She hissed. Blood was dripping from her nose as she wiped it. "You're a fucking kiss ass. Nothing more. He's a loyal shinobi," Inoki commented, rushing to Rashi's side. He was breathing heavily and his right hand was now over the hole in his shoulder, but he had cleaned his body of the poison. Suzumabachi glared. "Loyal to you? Loyal to a weak man who kisses Konoha's ass." Inoki sighed. "Call me weak all you want, but I've been in IWA my whole life, fighting for it and doing what I can to hold it together when weakened. I never once walked away from the village whenever my ego was bruised, like you and your brothers did after the Third Shinobi World War. Don't insult my brothers." Suzumabachi growled in response. "We only went on a mission to get stronger and succeeded. You can't condemn that dash. I granted you that right, Suzumabachi, all those years ago," Inoki said, crossing his arms. "And regardless of what your intentions were, you left the village when it needed all of its manpower. You abandoned IWA." He shook his head. "You're not fit to beat Tsuchikage. Shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up, shut upshutup. Suzumabachi continued to shout as her wings flapped, bringing her up in the air. "I am Iwagakure's future. Learn your fucking place, you goddamn relic. Learn yours dash." Inoki's words died on his lips as he noticed a small white cube being lifted from the hole Mu was sent downwards. "Shit! Rashi! Jump!" Dust style, area disintegration. Inoki's body floated above the ground while Rashi jumped into the sky just in time as the ground was, once again, covered by a two-dimensional shape that wiped out everything on the ground, traces of honey, melted lava, newly formed stone structures, turning everything to dust once more. Suzumabachi made a hand sign, causing the large hornet to finally stop mass spraying its stingers and fly downward to Rashi. The Jinchuriki turned his head to face the creature. "Kamizuru's secret technique, Hornet Bomb!" Rashi's eyes widened as he began to channel more chakra around his body, covering himself in more lava armor. Fuck dash! The hornet self-destructed, the impact knocking Rashi back down into the ground, creating a crater. The hornet's remains were now turned into honey which quickly covered the Jinchuriki's body. "Ah!" he screamed in pain. The honey was overwhelming. It managed to cool off the lava armor around his body while somehow burning his skin. Rashi continued to scream as he pulled himself off the ground, his lava completely extinguished. Heh! Ha ha! The Jinchuriki heard a loud voice echoing in his head. Seems like you're in trouble. If only you had more chakra. If only you weren't a prideful bastard, maybe you'd be able to use version 2 and fight harder. Yanbi. Rashi grit his teeth from the pain. Please, help Dash. What's my name? The voice growled in response. Son Goku. Help. Help me help Inoki. The Jinchuriki requested, doing his best to remain standing. He took one step forward and began to channel more of his Biju's chakra, but as he began, his eyes widened. Exhaustion took over his body and he quickly fell over to the ground once again. The Yambi chuckled in response. Heh. Finally called me by my name. But it's too late. Over 40 years too late. Enjoy your loss, pathetic human. The last thing Rashi could hear in his mind was the sound of the Biju's laughter as he fell into unconsciousness. Rashi-sama is down, Suzumabachi's jutsu is terrifying. And Naidame-sama is equally terrifying. I can't believe that happened. This fight is getting really ugly. I don't remember the last time a Yama no Osu was this ugly. The crowds of spectators gossiped to one another as the fight continued, their words getting louder and filled with more concern. Rashi-san went down so fast, that seemed unreal. Dosa noted, frowning. He had been doing an excellent job avoiding most attacks. I mean, Suzumabachi's technique right there is one of the worst in Kamizura clan repertoire. Risho explained, crossing his arms. The honey released from one of the giant hornets her clan is potent enough to kill within seconds. And Rashi just got completely soaked in it. Is he going to be okay? Roto asked. Rashi will be fine. Kitsuchi noted. The Yambi won't allow its host to die. It could be doing a lot more for this fight though. Shikamaru noted, scowling. I know Rashi should have been able to enter version 2 like Naruto can. What was up with that? Why wasn't the Yambi helping? The Nara turned his head and noticed that Han was staring intently at Rashi's unconscious body. The Gobi Jinchuriki's hands were tightened and his hat and steam was starting to leak from his armor. He could see the rage in the man's expression. His eyes then moved to Kuratsuchi. She was staring at her grandfather intently, biting her lip. Her heart was beating rapidly. Gramps, please. Please be okay. She prayed. Rashi. Inoki shook his head, frowning. This got even worse. The Jinchuriki is down, it seems. Moon noted. I suppose. But it's best to just make sure. Suzumabachi suggested, her eyebrow raising. On cue, Moo's body began to create a circular cube of chakra in his palms. A scowl developed under his bandages. Do not keep attacking an unconscious IWA shinobi. The Naidame hissed. Where's your honor? Humph. Suzumabachi shook her head, sighing. Even you're too soft, Naidame-san. Mu said nothing as the cube in his hand shot forward, surrounding Rashi's body. Rashi. Inoki hissed as he created his own orb of chakra. Inoki shot his orb forward at the cube that surrounded Rashi's body. The collision shattered the cube, turning it into pieces of dust. Inoki's orb then enclosed around Rashi and carried him off the battlefield, into an empty section of the stadium's seating. Fucking classless. Inoki snarled as he began to pant heavily. Attacking a man that's down dash, get off your high horse. Suzumabachi snarled. What shinobi doesn't try and minimize risk factors? I want to make sure he stays down for the rest of this fight. We're trying to kill him. Inoki corrected, glaring. A loyal shinobi to this village. You have no claim to the Tsuchika's hat, says a relic. The Kamizuru rolled her eyes as she made a hand sign. We'll see if you even have the authority to say shit like that in a moment. 50 bees appeared in a poof of smoke around Inoki's position. The bees charged forward at Inoki. The Sandaime clapped his hands together before he flew off the ground, avoiding their stingers. Even if you put on this hat, you're not fit for the title. It would be just a hat for you, Inoki said. You would not have my respect as Tsuchikage. I don't need your respect. Suzumabachi spat as she flew towards Inoki. I need you to submit. Inoki clapped his hands together, raising 10 large boulders that began to circle around his body. He then moved his hands forward, causing the rocks to fly towards Suzumabachi. The Kamizura flew towards him, avoiding boulder after boulder, until she reached his position, stingers visible on her open palm. He then made another hand sign, causing the boulders to fly back towards them. Before Suzumabachi could embed the stingers into Inoki, one of the boulders slammed into her back and shattered, causing more beeswax to fall off her body and for her to cough up blood. She then flew up, avoiding the rest of the boulders, which surrounded Inoki's body once more. You know your grandfather's techniques, but you're not at his mastery, Inoki said, smirking. You need to keep remaking that beeswax armor. Every time, it shatters. I've only seen Ishikawa-sama's armor break twice, and those were because he faced a dust release explosion head-on. How do you expect to wear the same hat that he wore if you can't reach his level? Shut up! Suzumabachi shouted. Suzumabachi flew back towards Inoki, channeling chakra into her mouth. Inoki made a gesture hand, causing the boulders to fly towards her once more. She clapped her hands before she spat out a ball of honey from her mouth. The ball shot through each rock, piercing them and causing them to melt upon impact. Inoki then descended, avoiding the honey ball. Suzumabachi made a hand sign, causing the honey ball to erupt, spreading the honey. The sandame then flew back up, making sure to avoid getting hit by even a single droplet of honey. Mu flew into the sky above Inoki's position, creating a cube of chakra in his hands. The sandame turned around in time as Mu's chakra cube expanded and surrounded his body. Inoki brought his hands together, creating a cube of chakra of his own that he sent flying into Mu's. Just as the Nidame's cube began to detonate, Inoki's managed to destroy it. An explosion resulted, sending the sandame flying to the ground hard. He coughed up blood as he pulled himself off the ground. Inoki, how much chakra do you have right now? Mu questioned. At the rate of your dust release, you can't have much left. The sandame did not rely as he pulled himself to his feet. He breathed heavily, his eyes narrowing on the Nidame before turning to look Suzumabachi in the eye. Inoki. Please. Surrender. Mu requested. It's a 2 versus 1 and I seem to be here indefinitely. This battle cannot be good for your health. You should listen to your predecessor, Suzumabachi said, grinning. Submit. Submit to the Yandame Tsuchikage. And that's why. I can't. Inoki replied. He coughed up more blood as he gripped tightly onto his hat. I am the Tsuchikage, for a fucking reason. I refuse. Inoki choked up more blood. He brought his right hand to his mouth for a second and controlled his breathing before he continued to speak. I refuse to let someone do harm to IWA and its future. You will never become Tsuchikage, says an old man who can't even speak properly without coughing up blood. You're weak, Inoki. You'll be lucky if any medical shinobi can treat you when this is all done. Suzumabachi noted, scowling. Nidame-san, let's finish this. Mu's body began to move on command. Inoki, I'll be seeing you in the land of the dead soon enough, it seems. Both Suzumabachi and Mu flew towards Inoki's position. The sandame closed his eyes. I have little chakra. Rashi's unable to fight and I'm fighting one-on-one. I can't take much more. I will lose like this, he told himself, taking in a deep breath as he started to channel chakra into his palms. I'll put everything I have left into one final attack. I need this to knock Suzumabachi out. Hopefully that'll end Mu-sama's attack. As Mu and Suzumabachi flew closer to him, Inoki made a swinging gesture around his body, creating an orb of chakra around his body. The orb then expanded, forming a dome around the entirety of the arena, completely encasing Suzumabachi and Mu. What? Suzumabachi's eyes widened as she began to reverse track, flying upward towards the edge of the dome. Mu's body continued to fly towards Inoki. Inoki, this jutsu. The Nidame's eyes were on the edge of the dome. Is this my area disintegration technique? Did you expand its capabilities? The Sandame did not verbally reply. He clapped his hands together as the edge of the dome started to glow a bright yellow color. Fuck! Suzumabachi hissed as her body began to encase itself in golden beeswax. Unlike usual, the beeswax remained physically on her as she continued to fly towards the edge of the dome. I need to get out of here. Mu continued to fly towards Inoki. He made a hand sign, causing a stalagmite to rise up from under Inoki's feet. The Sandame jumped away, avoiding it while not breaking his concentration on his jutsu. Mu then snapped his finger, causing the stalagmite to shatter and scatter into shards of stone that flew towards Inoki. The sandaime was then cut by multiple shards, slicing at more skin and drawing more blood. Despite the attack, the man did not lose his concentration on the jutsu. So close. Suzumabachi's flight was getting her closer to the edge of the dome. She managed to get her head out and her torso out of the edge of the dome. 4. IWA. Inoki growled as he clapped his hands together. No! Suzumabachi's eyes widened as she tried to get more of her body out of the dome. She had gotten her legs up to her feet out of the dome. Dust style, world disintegration. The large three-dimensional dome of chakra erupted from the inside, eradicating everything inside of it around Inoki's body. Mu, who was floating nearby him, completely disappeared, reduced to dust. Ah! Suzumabachi screamed as her lower legs, from below the knee, were destroyed on a particle level. They turned to dust, leaving gaping holes just below that blood fell from. Her hornet wings still buzzed as she remained flying above the dome. Her breathing was heavy as she turned her attention to the holes in her legs. Her body began to secrete honey and beeswax over the wounds, trying to cover them. Her eyes closed as pain filled her entire body. Within seconds, Mu's body reformed in the middle of the dome, taking shape again. Impressive Inoki dash. He was unable to finish his statement before his body was dismantled back into dust once more. The sandaime's eyes were narrowed on Mu's dust particles. He looked upward at Suzumabachi's figure, flying above his dome. He then made a slight gesture with his hands, causing the dome to expand upward. Fuck! She hissed as she started to fly further into the sky. Just a little more. Inoki breathed heavily. I need to end this, to end. Suzumabachi continued to fly upward into the sky as the dome continued to rise through the air. The dome rose rapidly, catching up to her pace. Her eyes widened in horror. No! She shouted, putting all of her strength into more power. I can't lose here! Almost. Inoki's breathing became harder as his dome almost reached her. As the edge of his dome touched what was left of her legs, a cold spell went down Inoki's body. Exhaustion filled him as he dropped his stance, the dome rescinding. No! I was so close. Inoki's eyes closed as his stomach dropped. IWA. I failed you. With every drop of chakra spent, Inoki fell to the ground into unconscious. The chakra dome quickly shattered, turning into dust. Gramps! Kuratsuchi screamed, getting out of her chair. Sandaime-sama! Risho shouted, shaking his head. Father! Katsuchi closed his eyes, looking downward. This is really, really bad. Taya brought her hands to her face. This can't be happening. Shikamaru shook his head, his stomach dropping. Before the Nara could say anything else, the crowds of people around them began to speak loudly. He began hearing the reactions of the people in the audience. Sandaime-sama is down! She defeated him? Suzumabachi won? Good! Onward to a new day for IWA! But she won by bringing in the Nidaime. This wasn't fair. Neither Sandaime-sama or Rashi-sama could do anything about him. This is wrong! Mama, is Sandaime-sama dead? What's going to happen now? What is going to happen now? Shikamaru mumbled aloud. Suzumabachi slowly lowered her body to the ground. Using her hornet wings to hold up her now legless body, she flew above Inoki's body. As she approached him, Mu's body reformed from the dust, turning back to normal. The Edo Tensei summon walked over to Inoki's unconscious body, shaking his head. The extent of that jutsu was enormous. I felt my body deteriorate over and over again. That was marvelous, Mu noted. And to be able to use it for so long when he must have been running low on chakra. It was a waste on his part, Suzumabachi said, crossing her arms. She flew down to his body and pulled the Tsuchikige's hat off his head. He should have used that technique earlier. That technique was indiscriminate in its destruction. He must not have, because he knew there was no way to keep Rashi safe. I also do not believe he wanted to kill you, Mu replied, frowning behind his bandages. Both mistakes of judgment on his part, Suzumabachi dismissed. The Kamizura placed the Tsuchikage hat on her head. A grin developed on her lips. A round of scattered applause could be heard from the audience. All hail Sandaime-sama! All hail Kamizuru Suzumabachi-sama! Long may she reign! The cheering, while noticeable from the arena ground, was not particularly loud. Suzumabachi frowned in response. The hat does not suit you, Mu stated. Well, I'm wearing it, she replied. You do not deserve the title, he said. What? And you're claiming he does? Suzumabachi shouted. Her grin returned to her face as she held out her left hand, producing a bee stinger in the palm of her head. A corpse doesn't deserve a title. Moo's eyes widened in realization at what she was about to do. You aren't going to. You can't be. You already won. The stinger in her hand shot out of her palm and towards Inoki's chest. The stinger pierced it and dug itself into his heart, killing him. Shock and horror filled the entire stadium. Not a single person in attendance said a single thing. In every Yama no OSU challenge, for the title of Tsuchikage, no one has ever killed their opponent. Ishikawa, the Shodai, spared everyone. Mu, upon defeating Ishikawa and becoming Tsuchikage, spared Ishikawa and spared all who later challenged him. Inoki spared everyone who fought him. Regardless of intent, it was understood that both parties had the best interests in IWA in their actions. The very act of murder in such a traditional, prideful scenario was unimaginable. No one, from civilian to shinobi, could respond. Inoki, he... Shikamaru's eyes focused on the body for a moment before they closed sharply. This can't be happening. This can't. No! Grandpa, no! Kuratsuchi screamed. Kuratsuchi's screams sounded throughout the entire arena. Everyone in the whole stadium turned to face her. The granddaughter of the Sandame did not notice all of the eyes and stared in horror at Inoki's body. Her body shivered as tears began to cascade, falling onto the ground. Memories began to slowly flash in her mind. Of her days running around the Tsuchikage's mansion with both her father and grandfather chasing after her angrily due to pranks. Of her days in the academy, learning her first basic jutsu while the Sandame watched, being a harsh but fair teacher. Of her passing her academy tests and becoming a shinobi, with Inoki grinning in pride and taking her out to eat. Of receiving her Chunin vest in Konoha, with her dragging her grandfather, Naruto, Hinata, and Shikamaru out to eat. Of her promotion to Jonin, with him buying her a bottle of sake. Of her moving into her apartment, and Inoki and Kitsuchi both helping her move into her new home. Of her long training sessions, where he began to show her how to use dust release. Of sitting down, on the mountain tops of IWA, looking down at the village side by side with her grandfather, not saying a word, simply enjoying each other's company. Grandfather, no, no. More tears fell from her eyes. Slowly her teeth started to grit, as her eyes narrowed behind her tears. No, 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 no. You fucking bitch. Kuratsuchi screamed as she moved forward. Shikamaru's eyes widened. Kuratsuchi, what dash? Any words he said died on his lips. Kuratsuchi did not glance at him as she jumped down to the center of the arena. Kuratsuchi, don't dash. Risho began to shout, but his words died on his tongue as Kitsuchi jumped down as well. Kitsuchi-sama. What are you doing? Kitsuchi said nothing as he followed his daughter. The knight-aimed Tsuchikage's hands moved on their accord, making a single hand sign. His body then began to split in half. A second figure, resembling Mu, left his back and stood side by side him. The two looked at each other momentarily. Why are you having me use my fishin jutsu? The original Mu demanded. The fight's over. The other Mu said nothing as he walked over to Inoki's body and picked it up. It's the payment in exchange for you being here, Suzumabachi said, grinning as she tipped her hat at the second Mu. Send Yurishi-san my regards and gratitude. You are the most disgusting person I have ever met from IWA. The second Mu noted, scowling. How dare you dash? Let go of him. Kuratsuchi shouted, arriving at the center of the battlefield. She made a hand sign and breathed out a barrage of lava balls from her mouth towards the second Mu. The copy's body began to float, avoiding the attacks. He then started to fly away. Get back here! She shouted. Let go of my father, Kitsuchi demanded slowly as he stomped on the ground. Earth-style, mobile core. A column of earth developed underneath Kitsuchi's feet that carried him up into the sky. The copy of Mu glanced at the man. Shinobi, if you can follow me, please do. I am bringing Inoki's body to the man who summoned me. Please catch up to me before I get too far ahead. He shouted. His words sounded throughout the stadium. Shinobi all across the arena heard his call, to the man who summoned him? Dosa's eyes widened in realization before his eyes narrowed in realization. He's leading away straight to Kabuto. Moose Close then flew through the sky rapidly, getting away. I won't let you get too far away, Kuratsuchi grumbled under his breath. He then turned his head to Kuratsuchi. Kuratsuchi, do not pursue. Leave this man to me. I dash. She began to shout. You know what you need to do, Kuratsuchi interrupted. Do what you need to do. Leave this man to me. With those words, Kuratsuchi jumped off the large column of earth as a new one formed underneath of the same height. He landed on it safely. He then began to run across the sky as new pillars of earth began to rise up, allowing him to follow Muskapi. What I need to do, Kuratsuchi mumbled under her breath. Her eyes turned to face Suzumabachi. The Kamizuru was still using her wings to hover above the ground. Do you have something you're wanting to say, bitch? Suzumabachi asked, grinning. Ready to finally bow to a new authority now that your precious Gramps isn't Tsuchikage? You are no Tsuchikage. You'll never be Tsuchikage of this village, Kuratsuchi spat out. I am, Suzumabachi replied, tipping her cap. I'm the Yondaime Tsuchikage. And I'm going to bring IWA to a new era. Starting with payback on Konoha and then focus on IWA growing even stronger as a powerful nation. Her grin faded as she glared at the girl. I'll do everything your fucking useless grandfather should have done but was unable to do. You'll do nothing. You aren't Tsuchikage. Kuratsuchi hissed as she pointed at the Kamizuru and began to shout loudly for the whole arena to hear. Kamizuru Suzumabachi, I am Kuratsuchi, and I challenge you to Yama no Osu for the title of Tsuchikage. Right here! Right now! Suzumabachi snorted in response. Her snort turned into loud, unending laughter. You know you can't just challenge me, right? You need the support of the people of IWA, who wanted me as their Tsuchikage, she said sharply. That won't be happening, dash. The Kamizuru was silenced by the sounds of people shouting from the arena. Fight her. Fight her. She's no Tsuchikage. She's dishonored IWA. Fight her. Fight her. Kamizuru Suzumabachi had only been Tsuchikage for less than a minute, and she already had her first challenge for the hat, with the support of IWA against her.